Hey, thank you so much for clicking on this video and giving it a shot. It really does mean a lot to me. In today's episode, I speak with Matt Davidson. He's a lieutenant at a local fire department. He also talks about his history in the military, what he used to do in the Navy and the Marine Corps. And he also discusses quite some detailed depth about having a child with cancer and what it was like going through that, some of the things they had to face. Also, we dive into a little bit of conspiracy theories, which I love, and also some other interesting topics as well. I really hope that you enjoy it. Break this up into little segments. Don't have to watch the entire 3.5 hours all at once, but please enjoy. Hit that like button, leave a little comment, subscribe to the channel, hit that notification bell whenever we make new content. Thank you so much. Well, man, how you been doing?
Great. I mean, all things considered.
Oh, I'm still recording on me.
Are you?
I should put it on you now. There you go.
Oh, all things considered. I mean, I think I'm fine. Everything that's been going on in the world, I've been kind of just bringing it back to the basics, taking care of the family, working.
Dude, it's been a few years
jobs,
since we've actually hung out.
I know.
Dude. So we used to go dirt biking together. We went a couple times, and obviously I taught you a thing or two that you
did. You
really picked up.
My skill level is so much better now because of the things that you taught me.
You're welcome. Yep. And it's just something simple that I could do. I can do that for anybody, as long as you let me ride your bike, because I don't have one anymore. But let's go ahead and talk about your past, especially like with dirt biking, because I mean you rode in the Baja 500
and the
correct?
1000
and the 1000.
Yeah.
And the 1000 was the most recent one, or was the 500 the most recent one?
No, the most recent one was in 2019, pre-planned gimmick. It was the Vegas to Reno. It's an off-road race. Obviously happens in Vegas. Starts in Vegas, ends in Reno. And was I did it as a solo effort to kind of give a nod to the kids, all the kids with cancer and everything. So I decided to race the whole thing by myself, where typically you would have 2 or 3 guys on a team. And went 608 miles in one day. That's about 99% off-road, so it's through the desert, next to Death Valley, 114-degree temperatures. Took me 14 hours and 45 minutes. And in the meantime, while I'm on the bike, I end up calling in a medevac for a pretty popular Instagram girl that got hurt. I rolled up on her, and just so happened I was a medic. And
how'd she get hurt?
She crashed. Yeah, I came around the corner, and bike was on the ground. She was all wadded up, and it looked like a yard sale. The tank was off the bike, but there were trophy trucks coming behind us.
Dude.
So I had to stop and get her. The EMTs there were like, "Hey, nobody can call a helicopter unless they're a paramedic or a supervisor." I'm like, "Well, give me the phone." So we ended up calling a helicopter in for her, but that delayed me a little bit. But still, I finished. Took about 78 kids' names on a helmet. They all signed it and gave me stickers and stuff like that. So
what did that feel like?
It was awesome. I mean, I'd always wanted to solo a big race like that. I had my fantastic wife and 2 of my very good friends with me, so they were basically my pit crew. Kept feeding me gas, working on. There was parts falling off the bike by the end of the night, so they were just trying to keep it together. But
I heard a rumor that you threw up while you were riding.
I did.
Oh, you really did?
Yeah, I did a little bit. I mean, verp. Yeah.
That's awesome, dude.
You get, like, in the wrong races like that, you get brain fade. So it's in and out. Like, I'm super sharp. I'm riding. Oh, my gosh, I'm doing so good. And then, the next 30 miles after you pit, you're like, you're just trying to not die. But it was a cool race. We hit speeds, sometimes 106 miles an hour in, like, a dry lake bed.
Dude.
So it's flat. And there's nothing there, so you just wrap the motorcycle. I got in trouble. I got to the next pit, and my wife, who was able to see the GPS and the live feed, she was like, "You know how fast you were going?" I'm like, "Fast as it go? I don't know. 106 miles an hour." I was like, "Cool."
On a dirt bike.
Right.
Well, what was the bike you rode? What was it?
I bought a 2017, so that was in 2019. It was just like a leftover that had been found in Chillicothe, Ohio. And it was so it was still brand new. It was in the crate. It was a 2017 Honda CRF 450X, which is basically the bike that wins the Baja 1000 all the time. So I bought it, brought it home, took it apart, put it back together, tested on it for about 6 or 8 hours, and took it to Vegas and raced it.
That is awesome.
It was fun.
So what is your passion about riding dirt bikes and racing? When did that start?
That was soon after I got out of the military. It was actually kind of a coping mechanism. Separation. when you get out of the military, a lot of guys talk about separation and how you don't really understand how you fit back in and everything. So, always been a motorcycle enthusiast. I've been raised around them. My dad's always had them. I've had one now since I've been 16. Only a couple of years where I didn't. And kind of went out with some buddies and started realizing that, hey, I can do this in the dirt. And then that took off in like 2000, I guess. And then by 2007, I was winning the state. So I moved up through. C is like amateur or beginner almost. B is like, I guess, more amateur or intermediate. And then A riders are pro or not professional, but expert. And then AA is pro. So I ride in the A class.
Okay.
So, but I moved all the way through from C all the way to A. And basically they told me I had to move up a couple years in a row. So I ended up winning the state in 2007 and 2010.
So with winning the state, what did that do to your ego with riding?
Who wouldn't be proud of that, right? Mm-hmm. Try and stay grounded though, but even though when I was doing that, I still would go to like the youth races in the morning. I'd get there at like 8, 9 o'clock in the morning. I didn't race till 12 o'clock or 1 half the time, but I would go out there and just make sure that I get to see the kids that were coming up. And I still see them now. They're racing against me and beating me. But I would go still kind of keep it to that level. Obviously, you form relationships. You have a race family. Mm-hmm. So I would kind of find kids that I kind of liked, and I'd go out there and try and be a good example. And I'm not drinking beer or whatever on the start line before the race or whatever, but just trying to pump them up.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So what has been your most favorite race you've ever done?
Vegas to Reno would probably be the best, just because it's the last experience that we had. Mm-hmm. It was a huge accomplishment, a lot of planning and logistics that had to go into it, and then it went off basically without a hitch, with the exception of helping Jackie. Mm-hmm. Second off, I would say Baja 1000 in 2000. That was 2009 or 2010. I got recruited to come out there and ride the night section. So I was on the bike for like 310 miles or something like that in the dark. And it was a blast.
Really?
Yes. It's terrifying, but yeah, it's a blast.
So explain to me, what does it feel like riding on a bike 300 plus miles in one sitting? What does it feel like? How do your arms feel? How do your abs feel? How does your butt feel? Because you're getting hit. I mean,
yeah.
You're going to be either seat jumping or smoking your butt on the seat.
And you're going to wreck.
What about your legs? Yes.
You're going to wreck, no matter what. It's just how extravagant. Mm-hmm. There's some conditioning to it. Like, I'm going to go do the not Baja, but I'm going to do Vegas to Reno again next year.
Really?
So in the month leading up to the one I've already done and the one leading up to the one I'm going to do, I'll drop 20, 25 pounds. I'll start riding a lot because there's no replacement for seat time. I'll ride probably 2 times a week. And then you kind of develop some muscle memory as far as when you got to stand, when you got to sit, how to preserve. Plus the bike setup's a lot of it too. I mean, you take a lot of strain off your body by having the suspension set up the right way, the bar height the right way, getting steering dampeners.
Making it comfortable for you?
Yeah, you just make it comfortable. My seat, I spent a lot of money on my seat on the race bike.
Really?
Yeah, but it's got it's called Sturgis foam, and then it's got memory foam on top of it.
Oh.
So
how much money did you spend on your seat?
Almost $1,000.
Good night.
Right. Sent it to California and had it built.
So how much money did you spend on just your race bike for the Baja one, or for your Vegas arena? Yeah.
Base, I probably have $15,000 in the dirt bike. Now, that's not money out of my pocket. Mm-hmm. I mean, I got some sponsorship from quite a few people, even local and
that's awesome.
Internet or like nationally. It's because they figured out what I was going to do. Mm-hmm. So the one in 2022, I think, we're going to try to team up with Leukemia Lymphoma Society. And they're going to use me kind of as a media tool. Like, if these kids can endure these cancers and things like that, then here's a guy that's going to go out there and put it all out there. Mm-hmm. So hopefully that ends up being a good marriage, if you will. I'd like to keep doing it, but
Well, because your bike sat over at the Honda shop over at Whiteland or Tracy Road.
Yep.
Did it not?
Yeah.
Okay, because I went
It was
in
on
there one
display.
day. It was on display. Yeah, I walked in there and I'm like, that's Matt Davidson's bike.
right.
No way. Like, that's so cool. And I was sitting there
Right.
touching it. And they're
Right.
like, hey, don't touch that bike. I'm like, I know this guy. They're like, I don't care. And I'm like,
You can ride it now if you want.
I'll take you up on that offer.
Yeah, it's fun.
It looked fun. Just looked like a nasty bike.
Yeah.
I used to ride.
It was built for war.
Yeah. It was built for war.
Right.
Ready for war.
Right.
I used to ride. I grew up riding, and my skill level was never that extravagant. It was never like anything impressive to anybody. But
You did all right.
I got to ride with you, which to me was the coolest thing ever.
Oh,
and then we jumped that road.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, you made me jump that road. I had no idea we were going to jump it.
Oh, yeah. We were down at Stony
At
Lonesome.
Stony Lonesome, and you made me
Yeah.
jump that. I see your bike go flying. So if anybody's wondering, I'll go ahead and I'll tell my part of the story, and then you can tell the real story.
Okay.
So we're riding. He's like, hey, when we come around, you stop me before we even get to it. And you're like, hey, you're going to see me make this turn. And I'm going to be, I can't remember if you told me you're going to be at the top end of second gear or the bottom end of third gear. It was one of those.
Probably the top.
That's what I'm trying to think too. And you said, I'm going to punch it. You do the same and just go. So I was like, okay. And then so we get around that corner and I see you just take off. And then I'm like, I'll take off. So I start going. And then I see you go up in the air and you're up and you're up and you're up. And I'm like, he's still going. And then
Right.
I go. And then I'm looking down after I hit that jump. I look down and there's a road underneath us.
Right.
And then you landed perfectly. And then I bottomed out right at the other part of the hill. I'm like, boom,
Yeah, you
like
cased
that.
it.
And I still kept going. But dude, I remember my eyes were like this big.
Well, I remember you pulled up. Your eyes were that big. You looked like you had just like seen a ghost or something. And you're like, let's do it again.
Dude, that was
Let's
so
do it
much
again.
fun. That was so much fun.
Yeah.
That was a huge confidence booster for me.
Oh, sure.
riding.
Yeah, there's so many times even, hell now, I still ride up to stuff like on a motocross track and I'm like, I don't know, man. I don't know. I mean, I'm not a motocrosser. But then once I finally get the cojones to do it, and then I'm like, yeah, I conquered that fear. And they're like, bro, it's like 20 feet.
I tell you, like that meant a lot to me. I still remember it to this day.
Right.
And just riding with you was so much fun. I learned a whole new slew of things. I mean, even like those really you probably won't remember this, but those real muddy parts and part of the where all the ruts are.
It was right after the jump.
Yeah, it was right after the jump. Instead of picking a rut to go in, go across diagonally,
Right.
create your own new one. And I'm like, oh my gosh, like
Survival skills. Those are things that get learned. Yeah, especially in those races.
that was just like that was really cool for me. And
Right.
then that hill you wouldn't let me climb. I was wanting to climb it. Do you remember that real giant hill that has that rock or
Yeah.
that tree stump that's in the way that you have to jump up?
Yeah.
I recorded you doing that the whole time. And
They
I
call
was
that Coxy's Hill.
yeah, dude, that looked awesome.
Yeah.
I wanted to do
It's
it, but
more fun going down.
really.
Yeah, because you jump midway off the hill and you don't land until the bottom.
I'm okay.
Yeah, you okay?
I'm okay.
Yeah.
But I learned so much and I had so much fun riding. It was a great workout, but just sitting there riding with a buddy, that's pretty good. Like I consider you to be very good, but riding with somebody who's much better than you to give you tips and tricks and
Sure.
improving your skills. Like we went over to, where was that place that you took me to? And I ended up flipping over the berm.
Oh, that was Moto Supreme.
Moto Supreme.
Yeah.
And I was taking that berm and I flipped right over it
Yeah.
and like went over the handlebars.
You were so excited that you wrecked.
It was awesome. I wrecked doing something cool, not
Right.
something stupid. Like,
Right. I came around the corner and you were still hanging on upside down with your helmet looking back at me upside down. I'm like, what's he doing? It's funny.
I had so much fun doing that. But, so moving on from dirt biking, let's talk about your experience in the military. So go ahead and you were in the Navy. You started out in the Navy, or
I started out in the Navy.
you started out in the Navy?
I mean, technically, when I left, I was still in the Navy.
okay.
But
So go ahead and explain to me how that works.
okay,
Yeah.
so I've explained this 100 times to the layperson, but every time I explain it, I want to make sure that I'm like trying to hit a different area. So I'll explain it to you in like the layman's terms.
Mm-hmm.
I joined the Navy, was excited to score high enough to be put into what they call Navy corpsman. So from now on, we'll call the corpsman the medic, right? So I get through corpsman school. I do okay. I get to pick my duty station. I'm going to go to a naval hospital, right? So I get to the Naval Hospital and I go to Charleston, South Carolina. I'm in a Naval Hospital. I'm literally like an orderly or whatever. So there's different sides to being a corpsman or a medic. You have the blue side, which the blue side is like guys that are on ships, guys that are in Navy hospitals. And then there's a green side. Well, the green side guys end up being with the Marines as a combat medic. Now you take yourself out of it. I had always thought I maybe wanted to do green side, but my past, like as far back as like stupid high school, had kind of followed me. And I don't know how or who got the idea, or if it was another corpsman that maybe was at Charleston, because I was a swimmer in school. I was a diver. I was a cross-country runner. I ran track. I played golf. But I never hit like football, basketball, baseball, right? They found out. Somebody did. And there was a recon, what's it called? The indoc. The recon indoctrination. So like it's basically a tryout, like selection. So I got invited to go to the selection. There was like 5 or 6 guys that went or whatever. Obviously I killed the swim, killed the run. I did probably the minimum amount of pull-ups that I had to do. I was lanky, though. I was like 6 foot, probably 176 pounds, 180 pounds.
You sent me some pictures, which I'll post up in this. But
well, that I'm even heavier than the ones that I showed you.
Dude, you look badass in those.
Anyway,
that's pretty cool.
So I went through the indoc, and the selection, I got selected. Mm-hmm. So I'd already been through the green side training, but I was stuck at the hospital. So they pull me in and they're like, hey, there's this thing, it's called 8427. We want to put you in this 8427 program. I'm like, what's 8427? I'm already in 8404, which is the billet for, or MOS for, green side medic.
So is that a rank? Is that like your part of your rank, or
8404 is just like your designation. It'd be like a grunt is an 11 Bravo in the Army. Mm-hmm. In the military, or the Marine Corps, it's 0311.
Okay.
So 8427 was a designation in the Navy rank. And I'm like, what is it? And they're like, well, it's Special Amphibious Reconnaissance Corpsman. And I was like, is that new? And they said, yeah, we're just now standing it up. So this is 1992, maybe? Beginning of 1992. Mm-hmm. I'm old.
God, that's how old he is.
He's 48. So they send me through what they call the pipeline. Mm-hmm. So I go home for a little while. I'm all excited. I'm going to be with these Marines and everything else. Well, I didn't understand that Special Amphibious Reconnaissance Corpsman meant I was going to be with a recon unit, which is in the military or in the Marine Corps. I always say that. In the Marine Corps and in the Special Operations community, Force Recon and Recon Battalion are considered Tier 3, but move up sometimes to Tier 2. So in comparison, Tier 1 would be like DevGru, i.e. SEAL Team 6, Delta, things like that. And then Rangers and some of the airborne units end up kind of floating between Tier 2 and Tier 3. Because the Marine Corps then didn't have a Tier 2, constant Tier 2. Anywho.
So this was going to be that Tier 2?
Yes.
Okay.
Well, I'll tell you how it evolves.
Okay.
All the way up to 2006.
Oh.
So I get there. I go home for a little while. I go to Panama City Beach, Florida, and I get stuck in Marine Combatant Diver School. I'm like, okay, this is a little bit intense. Like, they're trying to drown me. And I'm swimming thousands of meters at a time. So in order for us to get out of that school, you had to swim 10K. So not only are you becoming like a scout swimmer, you're also becoming a combatant diver.
I'm going to look up. How much is 10K in miles?
6.4. Right.
American?
Right. So you had fins. And everybody thought, oh, you got fins. That's great. Well, no, you got to keep your snorkel in your mouth the whole time. You have to wear your mask the whole time, and you're in full camouflage uniform.
Oh, my gosh.
So 10K. So anyway, get out of that school. I'm feeling like a man, right? Go straight to jump school, Fort Benning, Georgia, right? Go straight to jump school. Then from there, you go up to Little Creek, Virginia, and you go to Amphibious Reconnaissance School. So I don't remember how long that was. It was at Little Creek. Was probably the most professional class that I'd ever been in the military. I mean, like, look, you guys made it this far. Now we're going to teach you like the juice, right? The meat and potatoes of the job. Leave there. I think I went home maybe again, and then got to Camp Lejeune, North Carolina, and was with Recon Battalion. In the process, so Recon Battalion now and 2nd Force Reconnaissance are starting to take members out of each group. There's this other new unit that has stood up in the 2nd Marine Division. It is 2nd Small Craft Company. Everybody's like, what is that? So it's riverine assault craft boats. It's the CRRCs or the Zodiacs. And then they had combat rigid raider craft. Or no, that was the CRRC. They had just a regular raider craft, which is a Boston whaler with a bunch of hopped up motors on them.
That's cool.
So they took reconnaissance guys from Force Reconnaissance. They took guys from Recon Battalion, and they took this group of people that they had selected and put them all together. And it was to stand up and do deployments overseas that had like riverine access, and to do war on drugs stuff in South and Central America. That was still Clinton's.
So real quick, was this a program that was already in existence in another branch of military? Like branch?
I mean so it would be SWIC like in the Navy, but those are guys that are directly involved with SEALs only. So this group that we were standing up was going to be what is now Marsoc Raiders.
Oh, that's cool.
So we were the beginning of that. And it is an asset that not only can deliver like force reconnaissance. Well, Force Recon's gone. It's gone in 06 when it switched to Marsoc. But they can put raiders in. They can take elements of battalions of Marines, like scout swimmers or scout snipers or whatever, and they deliver them and put them into the country where they need them to be. Mm-hmm. Sometimes Marsoc is a supporting element, and sometimes it's the driving element. It's like Marsoc sometimes will provide security for SEAL teams while they're operating, or sometimes SEAL teams will be like the quick reaction force for stuff that Marsoc's doing. Mm-hmm. So the Navy works really well together because technically the Marine Corps is a department of the Navy. We like to say it's the men's department.
You've been told me that. The menace department?
The men's department.
The men's department.
Menace would work as well.
That would be pretty cool.
So in a long story short, I was found by the Marine Corps, adopted by psychopaths, taught their ways, and expected to be their nanny.
That is so cool.
Because you do about everything as a corpsman. You're a psychologist, you're a marriage counselor, you're a trauma surgeon, stitching them up from them making dumb decisions. And then, sometimes you're cuddling with them in a sleeping bag because they have hypothermia. So my job, though, is to still be a shooter. I was taught all the ways to move through buildings and ships, small unit tactics in the jungle and everything else. And then if someone was hurt, then my secondary was to peel off and start being my real profession.
What was some of the duties and aspects that you learned from being a part of that that you use today being a firefighter?
Oh, well, we talked about this before. Mm-hmm. I got to work with some pretty cool dudes. Now, honestly, just like everything else, there's some guys that you get some POSs in there, but I was influenced by guys that I can name them. Staff Sergeant Freddie Sizemore, probably the hairiest man I've ever met in my life. Hardcore dude, really good at what he did. A leader, 100% a leader. Like literally from the front. If he wasn't going to do it, he wouldn't ask you to do it. He wasn't in a typical sense of a Marine where he would say, hey, man, tear down that wall with your hands. And he would expect it. No, he'd start tearing the wall down with his hands too. And then I had a sergeant, Zonka was his last name. And he was another guy just like it. I mean, if we were getting muddy and bloody, he was doing it. So I learned a lot of leadership traits that I'd like to see in people. I don't necessarily see them in the fire service all the time because it's just a different leadership style. They say the fire department's paramilitary. It's not. I mean, if you've been in the military at all, there is rank and there's structure and there's things like that, but the leadership styles are not the same.
That's something that I took a class by, I don't remember their names anymore, but they were talking about how the fire department is supposed to be paramilitary, and the first thing that other guy said, he's like, it is 100% not, because there's certain punishments that you would get in the military if you made like a simple mistake, that it's just a slap on the wrist or it's just swept under the rug.
So the Marine Corps and the military when I was in was different. If you had a grievance or a difference, sometimes no matter rank, there was a process to start where you just go in the woods and whoever came back least bloody won. And then the argument was over. You have a beer about it, and it was over. Obviously, softer, kinder, gentler generations that we've had since mine. It's you couldn't do that now. No. Or if you got in trouble, you didn't get a write-up, you didn't get a verbal, you just went and dug a foxhole for like 3 hours. And then you come back and like, you learned your lesson? Yeah, fill it in. Come back. Yeah, that doesn't happen anymore.
I wonder why.
Right.
That was another question that I was going to ask. I want to keep back on the discussion on what you used to do in the military, and then afterwards I've got it written down. I can ask about that.
Sure.
So with you being basically part of the beginning stages of the Marsoc Raiders,
Yeah.
what did that mean? What were things that you remember happening that they were like, we're trying to figure out, we're trying to get our feet in the sand? So obviously there'd be steps in different directions. What were some things that you guys learned, like, hey, this is working, this is what we can keep moving on? Or what were some things that you're like, this is not working for us and we're going to have to take a step back?
Initially, I would say the first thing that probably stands out is that we had our initial kind of the way we built it. There was just little elements of recon and little elements of the boat or a small craft company. We would try and augment, like we floated like with 3rd Battalion, 6th Marines. So we tried to take Lima Company in 3rd Battalion, 6th Marines and turn them into a boat unit, right? And that still happens now within battalions of Marines, but they've got like scout swimmers and now they call them raiders. So they build them at a battalion, not a battalion level. Yeah, battalion level. So we tried to bring these guys in initially and just make them like boat savvy. Mm-hmm. You know, they got to wear kind of the grungy uniforms. They got to wear the boonie caps. They got to do a bunch of that stuff. And it didn't work because at heart, they were grunts with a very minimum amount of training. When if you forecast it now to what the Raiders are, what I understand Raiders to be is these guys are consummate professionals. They've been to all the classes. They get special schools all the time to augment their unit, you know, small unit, even down to like a platoon level. And I think that we learned that taking a company, taking a company like Lima Company and trying to turn them into boat people, I imagine that's why Marsoc has gotten so much bigger and the Raiders have gotten so much bigger is because while there are still battalion levels, they've built Marsoc to be its own entity. Mm-hmm. They can augment with battalion people, but I think we learned early on that we couldn't just take regular grunts without making them somehow a reconnaissance operator and giving them the basics.
The basic trainings of special forces kind of stuff.
They say special forces, that's kind of a blanket statement for everything. Mm-hmm. In the Marine Corps, when JSOC and everything, we were actually special operations. So it was a bigger blanket. Okay.
And then with that, what was one of the first missions that you guys were given?
Funny thing is a lot of reconnaissance it's about being like the eyes and ears of the battalion commander, being able to go out undetected, gather information, do things like LP, OP, which was listening posts, observation posts. You're really kind of just laying in the same spot, trying to figure out people's habits. Routes of travel, things like that.
It's about like bad guys or just people just in general?
Whoever they needed us to do it too. They weren't always bad guys. But where was I going with that? So the very first operation was real life. We floated in September, I think, of 93. Would have been August or September of 1993. So shortly thereafter, we were sitting off the coast in the Indian Ocean up against Somalia. And they had just shot down the Blackhawks in Black Hawk Down.
Mm-hmm, the movie.
So our initial mission was going to be that we were going to go in and do sniper, counter-sniper stuff. We were going to look for snipers like in buildings, mortar emplacements, things like that, just observation. And so our secondary mission was always direct action. So they shoot down the Blackhawks and everything. Bennett was with 10th Mountain, I believe. So 10th Mountain was there. There was a bunch of Rangers and Delta and everything, and obviously you understand what happened there. That was a total screw up on the Army's part. So they shot down these guys. These dudes are pinned down and everything. Well, the Army, just like every other branch, they want to go get their buddies. So they were unassing the base, going out into the city to get their guys that were pinned down. In the meantime, the Somalis are coming around the other side, like in small groups, but 6 guys in polyester pants with AK-47s, and it's their turf. They know kind of what they're doing. So they were going to overrun the airport, which was basically our command and control, plus the stadium, plus the port, so we could get ships in, supplies, things like that. So they started to come around. They were coming through the ends of the fence in Somalia, or in Mogadishu's airport. We had shacks and stuff down there, and we called it Walmart. We'd go down there and trade like our MRE stuff, and they'd give us like polished coral or some gourd that they had fashioned into some kind of pot or something like that. So they were coming through Walmart at the end and just basically tearing up the Saudis, because it was a UN operation. The Saudis were in the
United Nations.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
So the UN was there. Saudis were in, for whatever reason, the Saudi took the guard posts, like the elevated positions. Well, they were killing them. So now we're going from LPOP, counter sniper stuff, to get your gear, get on the helicopters. Oh my God, they're gonna overrun the base. So we're like, what is going on? How long?
How old were you when this happened?
Probably 19, getting ready to be 20.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. So we were there like 106 days after that happened. Like literally had to go. Like they sent somebody out to get our stuff and bring it back in. And the funny thing is a little side note. So finally everything's kind of chilled out a little bit. We've got I think it was this dude from the Army. He's trying to show us around. We've been sleeping on the ground for like a while. He's like, hey, see these Connex boxes over here? Ones with the air conditioners in them? Yeah, that's not you guys. That's the Air Force, or probably the Germans. They had cool stuff, and the French. But you see this other Connex box over here with the fans in it and everything? Yeah, it's not you either. I'm like, what are we doing? He was like, hey, the engineers put a roof over the top of this bombed out parking garage. That's you guys. We were like, perfect. The Marine Corps. Obviously, worst living conditions, terrible budget, and the expectations of many.
I have an understanding.
Yeah.
I have a slight understanding.
You probably do.
So with you going through with the whole, I'll just say the Black Hawk Down stuff, what did you guys specifically do?
Well, resecured the weaker parts of the airport and the port. It took a lot of us. We ended up augmenting with Lima Company because they were floating with us, 3rd Battalion, 6th Marines, Lima. So we ended up augmenting that, kind of securing everything back down, kind of quelling some skirmishes, if you will, exchanged some gunfire. And then parts of us went out and secured a small part of the route for the guys to come back. And that all happened in like 14 hours or something like that.
I know in
terrifying.
It's I was about to ask about that. I know that's got to be extremely scary to go through something like that. What was going through your mind? What were your emotions, and then how did you react to those emotions?
I told somebody this the other day, and it was actually Mason.
Oh,
we were talking about, because Mason did the same thing that I did, with not to the Marsoc or not to the reconnaissance level. He was with a battalion, and I told him this, and he was like, "Oh my God, I've never heard anybody say that before." You know what I thought the whole time? I felt like I'm like, I don't know if I'm ready. I don't know if I'm prepared. What else could have I done? I'm on the helicopter. We're going in, and I'm thinking to myself, I don't know if I have enough stuff. Like, these guys are getting tore up in the street. We're already getting kind of a situation report, and I was terrified to be under prepared. And I do that now, all the time. It's one of those things where, I've talked to people about mental health and things like that. And they said, yeah, that was probably the time when it actually affected you, because you were like, that's a raw, visceral fear. Like, you have no idea. Like, can I do this? Can I perform? Am I going to lock up? What am I going to do? Right? These guys might get killed. These are my buddies. These are my friends. So I think that was fear. If people say they're not scared in that situation, they're either mentally incapacitated at some point or they're lying, because I was terrified. And that's only happened a couple times since. You know what I mean? Like that visceral, raw kind of fear. But we performed. We did well. It wasn't pretty at first because it was like, oh my God, what do we do? We didn't have any direction hardly at all. It's just kind of got off the helicopter, put ourselves in a 180 degree semicircle with the beach behind us, and we're like, which way are we going? So
with going through that and moving in, you guys are moving in towards the city, obviously. Or which way was it?
Would have been west.
Moving in west?
Yeah.
So you guys are moving in that direction. What do you, I know it's been a little while for you, over
Sure.
20 years. What was going through your mind as you're scanning your field of vision? Do you remember?
I thought everything was going to kill us. I'm looking up. I'm looking down. I'm looking in my pack. I'm like,
because normal people never go through these situations. And what I wanted to do is I watched the movie with was it Chris Kyle, the sniper? That kid pulled up grabbed up the RPG and was getting ready to use it. And
yeah.
That just sparked in my mind. I've obviously never served in the military. I'm going to turn this on me for a second. I've obviously never served in the military. Man, I look so fat. Oh, God. I've never served in the military. So when I hear stories of children doing these things.
That is very real.
And I was going to ask you about that here in a second, if you're okay with talking about it. But when I watched that in that film, that kid pulls up that RPG and he's ready to shoot, and he's just praying that he's not going to shoot it because he didn't want to kill that kid.
Yeah.
I was sitting there thinking like this. I remember seeing reports of military members killing kids, and I'm like, oh my gosh, that's horrible. These people are crazy. Like, our guys in our military are killing kids, and I had no idea that these kids were put on. I've been told by other people that these kids will get paid to do this stuff, or they're just told like, hey, your family will be taken care of.
It's their culture.
And I was wondering if you could explain that a little bit, if you're okay with talking about that.
Explain it. I don't know how to tell you what they're thinking. I just know that they're very patriotic like we are. Mm-hmm. We were looked at as an invading force, but remember, there were two factions that were there. They were basically warring tribes. People who wanted to have control of the food, money, everything that was coming in from the UN. So anybody down to teenagers, they were willing to die and fight for that but that's the way they learned. It is such a third world country over there. It's probably one of the most disgusting places I've ever been, just because it's so dirty and raw and tribal. And I don't even know another good word just to describe it. It's not uncommon. And some of the theaters of operation that they're operating in now, I mean, I still pay attention to current events. I still have people in the military that I talk to the guys when they come back, because I'm a huge mental health advocate. Mm-hmm. And it's where they're coming out of in Afghanistan and Iraq. It's the same way. It's all for God and their God and country, and everybody's expected to participate. Sometimes even the women and children as shields, even. So it does happen. It did happen over there. There were kids, shooting at the Rangers and the Delta guys that were out there, and they got shot. And we encountered a few things. I won't go into that in a ton of detail, but it happens. And it's scary because...
I was about to ask that.
Well, it's... Say, for instance, like we talked about the Revolutionary War. Mm-hmm. We had 17, 16, 15-year-old kids here that were picking up rifles, but they were fighting for independence. So I think I can relate to it a little bit. It just, in our psyche, that probably doesn't make sense to a lot of adults because it hasn't happened for so many years. Mm-hmm. Even though an 18-year-old can still join the military.
I just read a report or a story yesterday about a 9-year-old kid who tried to enlist in the military, in the army, and they said, no, we're not going to recruit children, but he kept trying, and he ended up being one of the drummers.
Really?
And
In
he
the
was-
Revolutionary War.
In the Revolutionary
Yeah,
War.
I don't doubt
he ended
that.
up being one of the drummers and was
Right.
he was in multiple battles. A 9-year-old kid.
Right.
And I was trying to sit there and think like, oh my gosh.
That makes no sense to us, does it?
It makes zero sense to us. But back then, there's a completely different dynamic on that whole situation.
Right.
You don't have to answer this. We can pass this question if you want, but was there a doubt in your mind when a person who was obviously young of age is holding a weapon?
No.
Okay. Well, was there a doubt in your mind of this is happening? Like I can't. This is unbelievably chaotic.
Okay, so take it back to even the fire department, right? And this is a quote that I use all the time. When you are put under pressure, and you can use this as a training note if you ever want to, you will never exceed your expectations, ever. But you will fall back to your training, 100%. Your baseline training is what you do on your time off, right? Mm-hmm. So when I was in the military, we're shooting all the time. We're moving around things. We're doing mount situations like urban, like moving through buildings and things like that. When it came down to it, and it goes back to some of the stuff that I do now, right? Mm-hmm. I never expect myself to exceed expectations, but my training should be to a level higher than anybody else at a baseline. And that's, dude, I just described a lot of special operations groups because that's all they are. They train a lot. And when it came down to it, I think they just reacted. They did what they were supposed to do. Now, when it's over, it's pretty heavy, right? You start thinking about, man, did we just do that? Like, did we just go through that? And then you think back, and that's when Zonka and Sizemore, those are the guys that would lead with us, and they would tell us that all the time. You'll never be better than your training. When everything's terrified, and you're terrified, and everything going around you is just chaotic, you will always fall back to a base level.
Does it feel like just a bad dream at some parts of it?
I wish I could forget it some days. It's part of life. I mean, I knew what I was getting into. I think about it all the time, but it's not a bad dream. Just a necessary bump, I guess.
What has helped you cope?
Ooh, good question. Obviously,
we talked about the dirt biking earlier.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
You know, I'm an open book too. So, so I got back out of the military. Mm-hmm. Was never a drug guy. Didn't do anything like that. Knew I still wanted to continue to be probably a professional in some regard. The fire department made sense to me because I was already a medic, even though they didn't recognize me as a paramedic.
You're not good
I
enough.
had to use my GI
That was
Bill.
something we just talked about last shift. We talked about that. I kind of forgot that if you're considered a medic in the military, that it's the state for Indiana, it's the state board for paramedicine.
It is different. Paramedicine is different than combat medicine for sure. I did like a 6-week course while we were back in garrison, back in the States, and I got my EMT in like 6 weeks.
Dang.
So I had that to fall back on, but then I get back here and I'm like, what? I can't start IVs. I can't put you in chest tubes. I can't do all this, all these other things.
At that point, were you doing that in the military?
Yeah.
I would like to dive a little bit into that after we can finish the part of what you did to cope.
Oh, so never came back and never turned to drugs. Obviously, being with the Marine Corps, I had a pretty healthy tolerance for alcohol. That did continue for a while. I still drink. I mean, it's not like I've completely got sober and clean for years at a time. Riding, I worked a lot. Every firefighter. Once I finally I got out of college. I used my GI Bill for college. Got my degree in paramedicine, and got hired on the fire department. So 3 of them now. I've been on 3 departments. And then a lot of firefighters will immerse themselves in work outside of the fire department. So I worked a lot. Then I started having kids. So I had lots of distractions.
So you said a lot of distractions. So does that mean later on in life that it started to get worse to you? Because you were distracting, and once you start to slow down, then you realize
so
there's issues? Or
what I did do which was a mistake, and I'll tell people this all the time because, like, there again, I advocate for mental health. I was never evaluated nor medicated. I had no idea. I was one of those guys like, I don't need that. I don't need that. And then later on, these guys are coming back from Afghanistan and Iraq, and they're blown up, missing parts. And I'm like, man, I'm nowhere near as bad as those guys. So in 2009, a big cascade of stuff happened. The housing market crashed in 2008. I owned a company that was pretty reliant on new construction. I got divorced after catching her. I assumed responsibility and custody of a 9 and a 5-year-old. And now I'm a single dad who just lost my business. Just lost my wife of 13 years. 16 together. And found out that 6 months later that I was going to lose the house because payments had been diverted. So I was kind of crushed by all that. At the same time, I'm like, dude, I got to make this work. I got to figure it out. So I ended up going to my primary care physician because I was not coping. I had like a full-blown anxiety attack at the station, at the firehouse. And finally I went and got help and put me on a couple different trials from different medicines, and it really evened me out. So that's probably the biggest way that I cope now. And I remarried, and she's fantastic.
She's awesome.
She is awesome. She's hot too.
I love Stacy.
She's hot too. But no, she evens me out. The boys are bigger now. We got through that. Obviously, there's another part of that we're going to talk about.
Yeah, definitely. So earlier you talked about you probably can't talk about a lot of the stuff that you did, but earlier you said you guys did Recon LP and
OP
on bad guys and good guys. What would that be?
Sometimes we didn't know because we'd be okay. So then later on, after we get back from Somalia, we do the Mediterranean cruise. The Med, they call it the Med. You float the Med. We had been to Israel. We did a little bit of work in Bosnia. We ended up in like Tunisia, Greece, and when we would go to those places, we would train other groups that were trying to be like us. We'd give them like the American tactics or whatever. Come back. This is funny. We got back after 6.5 months. We were home for 7 days. We demobilized, cleaned everything. Everybody got to go home if you wanted to. So we go home for 7 days. 7 days later, I'm at Lake Cumberland and the phone rings. Now, mind you, this is like a bag phone, like an old school cellular phone, right? And it's like, hey, this is Captain Brown. Captain Brown, I need you back at the base. We're like, what? I was like, man, you guys screwing with me? What's going on? He's like, Doc. I was like, oh, that's him.
Sir, yes, sir.
So I had about 48 hours to get back to Camp Lejeune in a Chevy S10 with a heater core going out in it. So I had to run the heater just to keep it cool enough. So I drove back to Lejeune and put us back on the exact same ships in the exact same bunks. Put all the exact same gear back on it, reactivated the MEU, which is the Marine Expeditionary Unit, and sent us to Haiti because Haiti was in a refugee crisis. And this was in 1994 or 5. So we go down there. We basically invade Port-au-Prince. Similar concept. The guys are withholding food and funding from the UN and the US, and they're trying to get a hold on who's going to be in charge of the country. So we go in there and basically slap them around. And then we leave. So we come back. I think I went back home for a little while again, and then I switched to a Riverine assault craft platoon within 2nd Small Craft Company, which still had guys from Recon, Force Recon, and everything else. And they sent us to Panama. So we get down to Panama at the Jungle Warfare Center, and we're going to train the Panamanians and I think it was Nicaraguan army or something like that, to go out and look for clandestine drug labs where they're like processing cocaine or whatever, and then routes of travel. So we'd be in the Panama Canal. I'd already been in the Suez Canal, so now I was running in the Panama Canal and some of the tributaries that go to it, and then we'd go south. One group of ours went to Argentina, and they're looking around for like routes of travel. So we'd board boats on the river But the boat that we had had a 50 cal on the front and a turret. It had a Mark 19 on the back and a turret, and then it's got a 60 on each side. Plus, it's got it's basically this floating pill full of mad Marines, and we would just board, and we'd run into the jungle sometimes and look for stuff. And
so
sometimes you were asking, we were looking at good guys. We were watching the DEA. We had no idea. Yeah,
that is cool.
Yeah, watching DEA or an ATF,
and you didn't know it at the time.
No.
So you're just staring at these guys like
we're literally laying in the jungle, like, okay, 03:30 in the morning. This
Did
vehicle,
they know? Huh? Did they know that you guys?
No. That's government right there.
Yeah,
right.
That sounds like a miscommunication right there.
Yeah. So we go down there under JSOC, and JSOC was Joint Special Operations Command, and they took DEA, CIA, the elements of the military, Tier 1 guys, Tier 3 guys, and grunts, mix them all together and turn them into this. Go out and either find stuff, blow stuff up, or bring it back.
That is so cool.
It was crazy.
It just sounds nuts. It's not unbelievable, but it just really seems like that would be an exciting time to be in the military.
It was a really strange time because there weren't theaters of operation that were going on all the time that were on the news. You know what I mean? OIF, OEF, Enduring Freedom, and Iraqi Freedom. That's so media driven that you could see a lot of what was going on. Back, we didn't have a lot of media following us around, or there weren't camera phones. I mean, I had a beeper. Literally, I had to go to a payphone, call somebody. Like the first time I ever talked to my mom, I had a grandmother die while I was overseas. Not die, she almost died. But I was talking to her on like this secured link where it was basically a chat room, and that was like high speed stuff back in the day, and now I can do it on my phone. So I'm showing my age again, but there wasn't a whole lot of good communication about what was going on down there, and it was a cool time to be in because we're after the Cold War, we're after the first push in Kuwait. That's over now. So now it's kind of like this weird time, like who's going to make a play, right? And then you've got humanitarian crises going on in Haiti, and back up to Somalia, and then God knows wherever else. Plus, it was after the first attempt at the World Trade Center bombing. Mm-hmm. They had blown up the parking garage. Mm-hmm. So there were some key players over there we were kind of looking for. So it was a cool time, but it's just different.
Medically, my other question... Medically, what did you do while being a part? That's all right. It's only their ears will be blown.
Right.
Medically, what did you do during that time? What were some of the things that I'm sure anything and everything?
I didn't have to do much.
Really?
Yeah, my guys were so good. I'm serious. I mean, cuts, scrapes.
Yeah. Bag of fluid.
Right. Bag of fluids. I think I put in like a AHS tube, like where we were there, and it was actually a spontaneous pneumo. It wasn't even like traumatically related. So it was it happens a lot in lanky, tall males. But I didn't have to do much. I shot more than I did anything with medical. I mean, I was always prepared, and that was, like I told you, like in the background, that was my anxiety that I was not going to be ready. I was not going to be ready. So a lot of stupid stuff. Stitching people up after they get in fights, and and as far as being in theaters, pulling white palm like thorns out of people.
Oh.
Yeah, or black palm, thorns. I got that mixed up with white locust, black palm. Same concept though. It's like porcupine needles, and they'd get them in their arms and stuff, and I'd have to dig them out. A little bit of sexually transmitted stuff, but not usually. I'd usually give them a pretty good brief before they went out on liberty.
I've heard some really funny stories about stuff.
These guys, I'm telling you what, they can't make it pregnant or kill it like within 24 hours. Something's wrong with them. You gotta go to the Air Force.
A buddy of mine was in the Air Force, and he'd tell me some stories about what they do, and I'm like, oh my god,
yeah,
what people would do for a candy bar. I'm just saying.
Yes.
It is nuts. It blows my mind.
Depravity of humans.
It's It's sad because there's a lot of things. There's even a lot of humanitarian stuff that is up for discussion because I've heard people say stuff like, we have a lot of our own problems here in the United States, but I mean, I've been out of the country a couple times, and it's only been to go to like Mexico. Like I like to go to Cancun every year, but
Sure.
I've been to Juarez a couple times.
On mission,
out in
right?
Chihuahua, on mission trips.
Yeah.
That place is disgusting.
Yeah.
Like it's gross.
Yeah. If you can't see that stuff and then come back here and be like, man, we have got it so good, and then not get upset because people complain about it. Mm-hmm. What are you doing?
People talk about how horrible it is here, but it's
Leave.
Please, not even leave. Go somewhere and visit to see what it's like
I'll
in
buy
another
you a ticket
country.
to Juarez. You want to go there?
I'll even take somebody.
There you go.
I mean, I'll drop them off at the border. And I'll just
Right.
drive them like, you go there. I don't want to die.
Right. I'm not going in there.
Yeah, but it's a hellhole, and there's open sewage in the streets. People throwing their buckets of poop and pee out.
Somalia is the same way.
That's just disgusting, and we've come so far. I'm the one talking. I guess I should change it over.
Shit.
But it's come so far in the United States on even some of the poorer people get some of the nicest amenities compared to a lot of countries out there.
Yeah.
Our homeless population here gets more than a lot of people in Mexico.
Sure.
In those poor areas. Chihuahua is one of them. They're villages. My barn would be considered a mansion,
Right.
a high-end home.
Sure.
In Chihuahua, which is it's like a province or a state or something out there, and it's out in the middle of the desert. They had lean-tos as homes, and they had old tore up school buses that were rusted out that they've converted and had plywood and metal just kind of packed everywhere for just living.
When we race in Mexico and do the Baja and all that stuff, we go through some of the poorest towns that there are on the Baja Peninsula, and it's just
Your bike costs more than that whole town, probably.
100%. Yeah, but they're the coolest people.
They are.
Yeah.
When we were out there, dude, they cooked us a meal. I got a quick story about this. They cooked us a meal out in Mexico. And obviously there's a ton of dogs out there, wild dogs.
Yeah.
And there's packs of them. So we were sleeping in this church. The area we were in at that time didn't have a huge crisis for the cartel, but the cartel was still a big problem around that area. They locked us in the church on the outside and inside. I remember getting ready to sleep in my sleeping bag, and I look over and I hear chains rattling. They were wrapping chains around the doorknobs on the inside and locking us in because obvious cartel issues. And the windows were all barred and everything. It was very different.
Yeah.
So the village people there. Not the village people.
No,
song.
it's not the same.
Not the same.
I don't even think they had. No.
Nope, they didn't have that there.
Nope.
The people that lived in the village, they cooked us a meal. Fantastic food. It tasted so amazing.
Yeah.
Until I went into the kitchen. I walked into the kitchen to say thank you. Like, muchas gracias, señoritas. And I look at the table, and there was a skinned dog.
Yeah.
On the table. And I'm like, oh, God. I just ate a puppy. It tasted so good, though.
I don't know what the hell we ate over there. We could have ate.
You could have eaten anything.
Yeah, especially over there.
It was
in the Med.
But just in Mexico, I was like, oh my gosh, they fed this to us, and it was amazing. And I told that story to a lady who had a dog with her, and she was like, you're a monster. I'm like, this monster ate pretty well that day. I'll tell you that.
Exactly.
But that was a different cultural aspect. That
they're survivors, though.
And they're survivors.
Yeah.
They definitely are. And we
lose water for a couple hours, and everybody's like,
they're freaking out.
Oh my God, what are we going to do? We have to dig a well.
We're going to have to dig a well for this. It blows my mind when I hear somebody
hire to dig the well?
We can't do this ourselves. Oh, that is something for somebody else.
Exactly. Right.
And that's what just blew my mind. Like, people will sit here and complain about a lot of stuff. I'm like, you have going on the Appalachian Trail. Brian Johns loves to hike on the Appalachian Trail. My favorite thing to do with Brian is take Snapchat videos of all of my water running. Me flushing toilets as many times as I can, send it to him, be like, hey, are you having fun? Like,
right.
Because you're a sucker, bud. Like, you got to pump your water. And you have to have a filter.
Drink through a creek with a life straw.
And I'm like, dude, it's just the amenities of that we take for granted. And that so many other places don't have. I mean, a lot of places in Appalachia, homes in Appalachia.
I love
towns.
It out
there. That place is gorgeous.
Yeah.
But there's towns there that don't have running water that they have to go to a stream. And I just find that stuff just amusing, and that's just, it happens here, it happens everywhere, but it's much worse in a lot of other places.
With a little bit of a worldview, or at least the intelligence enough to look around the world and not have to be so focused in on whatever your group is here in the United States or whatever side you want to be on and everything else, and then just complain about everything. Like, go get some experience. Get out in the world, and you will come back here and be. I tell everybody, I went all over the country, I went all over the world, and I came back to Indiana. You know why? A, it was comfortable, and B, I mean, it had everything I needed. It wasn't like I was going to go live in, where were we at? Vieques Island off of Puerto Rico when we're doing operations out there. I'm like, no, I'm going back where there's running water and things like that. But people just, they don't get it. And it's getting worse.
It is definitely getting worse. So let's go ahead and talk about you having a child with cancer at the time. Zane, everybody knows Zane.
Right.
So let's go ahead and talk about in the beginning stages when you guys first, how did you guys notice there was something going on with Zane?
Initially, I want to say this was around probably Father's Day or so. Maybe it was my birthday. So one of the first things that he had been saying is that he was just run down. He didn't feel good. He was kind of in the military. We call it malingering, like just kind of slow roll and dragging his feet. Didn't want to do anything like in a hurry. And then it was my birthday. I think we were out to lunch or dinner. We had driven separately because Stacy had met us there. So I'm married again at this point, right? Custodial father. Now they're like 11 and 7 or something like that. He no, might have been later. Either way, he was almost 10, I guess. Yeah. So okay, so we'd been married a couple of years, and it's going swimmingly. Obviously, there's bumps in the road with being remarried, and now she's dealing with somebody that's medicated, and and I also have a seemingly stressful other jobs, right? So one of them's stressful because of what I do, and then one of them is stressful because of who I do it for. So, hey, can you relate though?
I can relate.
Yeah,
I can see that though.
Right. So he had been complaining, throwing up. Now I've cleaned up vomit now, and Stacy does not do puke. So I had cleaned up some vomit and everything a couple times, and I'm like, man, what is going on with him? So then he starts complaining of chest pain. Well, it was the last day of school. It would have been his 4th grade year. His 4th grade year.
So real quick, I only at this point had met Zane a few times. I can't specifically remember, but he was not really ever an extremely overweight child. He wasn't somebody who was...
He's built like his mother's side. Though.
Yes. Yeah. I remember him being more stout.
Yeah.
But to me, he never seemed to be like an unhealthy kid.
No, he wasn't.
So all of this kind of stuff to you. Oh, yeah. I like to eat too.
Right.
So all this stuff coming up is very abnormal.
Yeah.
Yes.
I mean, he had been, soccer kid. We sometimes under duress. He didn't want to do it, but we were always just trying to get him into some sort of sports. My concept is sports, not courts, right? If you're doing something, you're busy. So we had brought him. This was like the last day of, I think it was his 4th grade year. Stacy's so much better with this stuff. I was at field day. I was trying to be, that parent. Now I'm in the process of probably losing a house. No, I already had.
At that point.
Yeah, after the divorce. And a lot of money. But he was at field day, so I was going to be field day dad. And was there, and they were doing a water balloon fight, and he had been complaining like a little bit of chest pain. Well, he got hit in the chest with a water balloon, buckled him to his knees. We're like, what is going on? So we take him back to Riley. We'd already been there a couple times. And they'd been doing serial drug screens. not now. Serial blood draws. And they ended up admitting him for chest pain. And they kind of come back, and you can tell they're just kind of throwing darts at something. They don't really know. It's an unknown etiology. So then they say maybe he has rhabdomyolysis, which is proteins being stuck in your body. It's usually from breakdown of muscles and things like that. So they treat him for that, and they end up sending him home. So we're like, okay, cool, we're breaking out. Everything's fine. So we get home. It wasn't a couple days later. And so now my birthday is in May. This is when it all kind of started. End of May, June is when he got hit with the water balloon, right? So he gets this appointment scheduled, and they say they want him to meet with a cognitive behavioral specialist. They basically are saying he's faking. So, of course, I'm mad, right? He goes to the cognitive behavioral therapist, and then they basically say, this is in your head. She said, well, do you want me to get his blood drawn while we're here? Because our friend, I won't say her name because I don't know if this is on the books or not, but she's like, I'll draw his blood, send it to the lab. I'm like, well, screw it. You're already there. We've already spent a ton of money. We're into the deductible now. So they draw his blood. Well, I come home from my other job, which I'm not afraid to say where I work, from Lifeline. Yeah. I come home, and she had taken him, like being the good stepmom. And she said, well, you're going to be kind of mad, but they're saying that they think he's faking. And I was like, what? So I'm livid, right? Mm-hmm. So this was June, would have been the 2nd or 3rd of 2014. And my phone rings, and it's that doctor, the cognitive behavioral specialist. And I literally pick up the phone, not like nothing, like, hello, what? I'm like, oh, I'm glad you called. And he's like, wait a minute, wait. I'm like, what? He said, well, I got the blood results back. They sent them to me. And I said, I just gave them down to the ER and showed them to the other doctor. He's like, I need you to get here now. I said, why? He said, I need you to pack a bag for 3 or 4 days. I said, what is going on? He goes, I need you to get here. You're going to meet with the emergency doctor, and you're going to meet with oncology. And I'm in the medical field. I was like, oh, wow. What is going on? And if I choke up at any point in time, it's just because this was tough.
It's okay.
So we get him there, and they both walk in, and they basically said, your son has cancer. And I'm like, where? And they said he was 75% blasts, which are T cells that are mutated. So it was leukemia. And it set off the next 3.5, 4 years of just hell. It was crazy. And then I'm trying to call my parents because my mom lives in Tennessee. Mm-hmm. My dad lives in Greenwood, trying to assemble everybody, get them together, and then I'm trying to tell the story about everything. And they already knew that we were having some problems with him, but we were there. He had his port placed and his first chemo on the anniversary of D-Day. Was that June 6th or something like that? And he's a big history nerd. And it just turns out that the oncologist that was seeing him was a Polish guy. So they're talking about false flags, and Zane's a big nerd for history and everything. Guns, equipment, just tanks. He knows all that stuff. So, talk about trying to figure out how to be prepared again, right? I wasn't prepared. And then that sets off my anxiety. Mm-hmm. And then I've got to figure out what's the next steps. Nobody, everybody's kind of pointing at everybody else. Who's leading? What are we doing? And then I got my ex-wife there. I'm having to stay in the room with my ex-wife because she's a helicopter mom. She hovers. And
so not only the emotions you're going through with the bad news of hearing about what Zane's got, now you've got the mixed emotions of the ex-wife.
And my current wife.
And your current wife.
And what am I going to do with my other kids?
Yeah,
because nobody's there for him. Everybody's here. And we figured that out later. But so that set off, I think our first stay with chemo and everything was probably, 8 days or so that we were just stuck in the room. Mm-hmm. And then we're learning now about what chemo does, what the options are. Does he have to have stem cell replacements? What's the next steps? How long is this going to take? What's it going to cost? Mm-hmm. Like, oh my God, overwhelmed. and in the meantime, you've just been kicked in your junk, proverbially. Like, what do I do? I'm shocked. And nothing I did in the military would compare to what those next 3 years would be. It was terrible. But we all grew. We learned a lot about each other. And this is funny. Kind of ties back to what was going on. I got a call while I was sitting there feeling sorry for myself. Didn't know what was going on. I met Riley. I'm looking over at my ex-wife. My current wife's trying to entertain Zane, and I'm just like, God, I don't know what I'm going to do. So I saw a phone number pop up in my phone, and it was from North Carolina. I was like, well, who's this? By now everybody knows kind of what's going on. I don't know who's where or what's going on. So I answer it, and I hear Doc, because I had posted it on Facebook. And he didn't say who he was. He wouldn't say anything. He's like, and I may cuss right here.
That's okay.
He said, when shit's going sideways and the chips are down, you got to lead. He said, lead your family. Hung up. I was like, I put my feet on the ground and I'm like, let's go. And that's pretty much when it kind of started to change. But he's come out of it now. He's in remission. Next year, next September, it'll be 5 years. He'd be considered cured. So let's end this on a good note. He went through all the chemo, went through everything, really excelled. We had a couple setbacks where he got gets the flu vaccine because he's immunosuppressed. He gets flu B. He gets a big different change in chemo. It affects his liver. Now he's got bilirubin through the ceiling and cirrhosis of the liver. So go back in. We're there for sometimes we were there for 7, 8, 10 days at a time. But most of the time, they trusted me enough to where I got to go on vacation with him when he was early on diagnosed, and I had to give him chemo every day while we're on vacation. It sucked. It's just like, because he couldn't do anything. He looked like powder because he's got, his hair is completely gone. He's white as a ghost. He's got no platelets, no hemoglobin, no nothing. Plus he's on chemo. And you just feel sorry for the kid. Like, he can't even go on the jet ski because if he takes a bump, he'll bruise and could bleed. So, yeah, it sucked. That part of it was the worst part. But so on the good note, what I'll tell you is that his dream was always to be a pilot. Your brother will like this.
Yeah.
So he asked me a couple times. He's like, "Am I going to die?" Because I want to be a pilot. And a 10-year-old brain. You're like, "No, dude, we're going to get through this. Everything's fine." Well, I hope. You're right. In the back of your mind, you're like, "Damn, dude." But so he's been in remission. The kid has got like a 4.3 GPA.
Wow.
Right? So he takes some advanced classes.
Because he's doing all classes at home now.
No.
He's
back in regular school.
No, I meant back at that point.
Oh, yeah. So when he was
doing it
when he was in 5th grade, he was homeschooled, basically, by me. And then he had a couple teachers that would come to the house. I am not smarter than a 5th grader. I'm intelligent in what I know, the things that my wheelhouse, but Common Core math blows my mind. It's so dumb.
There's phones for a reason with calculators.
Right. But anyway, so he wanted to be a pilot all his life. He thought he was going to die a couple times. He wasn't going to realize that dream. And then he just went to Survivor's Clinic for the first time like 3 months ago. And he qualifies for a bunch of grants, scholarships, and everything else. And he just got accepted into Vincennes, Purdue's aviation.
Are you kidding me?
No, he got it in. They take like 120 kids a year.
That is so cool.
Yeah, so he's going to be a pilot. And he's in an aviation program through Central 9 right now. And he's working on 15 hours of flight right now. He may be done with his private pilot by the time he's out of his senior year in high school.
That is so cool.
Yeah.
Dude, I'm so proud of him.
He wanted to go in the military, but they wouldn't take him. He had to be like 10 years without cancer. I'm like, dude, beat cancer. He's already tough. Take him. Right? He can fly a helicopter.
So obviously, he's your son. Did you guys talk often about his mental stability and strength?
Yeah. I offered all kinds of tools for him. We talked about faith. We talked about, do you want to interject the church into this? I just tried to give him all kinds of options. But we definitely, initially, early on, I had to sit on the side of the bed with him and be like, look, this is overwhelming for everybody. I had to talk to him like an adult, and he's 10. I was like, but you have to fight. There's no option. And you're going to get beat down, and I'll be right there with you. But you have to fight. And he even did some pretty cool stuff early on where he decided on his own that he was going to be part of a focus group or a test. So he did some experimental meds and things like that at the beginning. He had to sign his own little cursive, real weird fourth grade handwriting on it, with big sweeping Z's and everything. So yeah, but no, he's really turned out fantastic. He's very reverent. He's very conscious of like everybody else's feelings. Mm-hmm. He's super aware. Like he gives Stacy, his stepmom, almost the equal amount of time that he gives his mother, and he makes sure that he's present. He's reverent. I mean, says thank you all the time. He's a good kid. Not that my other one's not. I mean, my oldest boy's fantastic too. They're just different. Kids are different.
With your oldest boy, Zeke.
Yeah.
How was he during this whole ordeal?
I think he felt a bit cast out. We've talked about it. Mm-hmm. And I've validated that feeling. I mean, it's totally true because I had to kind of shift gears and make a different focus. But I have told him too, he's a lot like me and my family, my immediate family. And Zeke is one of the personalities that I understand because he's a lot like me.
Dude, he looks just like you.
Yeah. But there's certain people that you're like, he'll be okay. I know he can adjust. I'll make up for it when we can. And we have. Mm-hmm. But he felt cast out for a little bit. He had to stay with the grandparents for a little while, and all the focus was his brother. But he's adapted. At the end, when he rang the bell and everything, Zeke was an emotional wreck. Just, he hates his little brother because he's his little brother, but at the same time, he's watched him struggle so much. And then, it's over, and he made it through, and he was crying.
That's when we were watching that video of him ringing that bell. It was so cool.
I saw another one of our cancer kids just ring out yesterday.
Really?
Yeah. It was crazy.
Well, there was this just popped up on my recent post feed happened 7 years ago, about the cancer cluster.
Oh, I didn't know if we were going to cover that.
No, we can cover it. Yeah.
Okay.
It's I've spoken with some people from the county, and you obviously, my opinion. I have my own opinions.
You're allowed.
Yes, I am. I feel like there could be cover-ups. That's what I feel like, and you'll obviously know way more about this whole thing than me. But per the country, our county had one of the higher clusters for children with cancer in the entire country. Is that accurate?
Yep.
To say that, and it came down to the old water treatment facility.
It was actually,
what was it?
So there was an industry there for a long time that did a lot of degreasing and a lot of things with.
Real quick, pull that mic down. It's kind of in your face.
Okay. Right down. How about that?
Down and then
we'll do this. We'll do that. Oh, beautiful. Huh. So there was an industry. Well, there's been multiple industries, but the one that has been like recorded and cited by the EPA was the Amphenol. I guess it was like a corporation. So they remanufactured engines and things like that. Used a lot of degreasers that had a lot of this certain chemical in it. They've been known to dump it on the ground. They've been known for not put lids on 55-gallon barrels and sit them in the rain, so they overflow. They've known. I mean, there's multiple people that have stepped up and said, "Yeah, they dumped it right down the floor drain." Well, the floor drains and those things, infrastructure in Indiana, let alone city of Franklin, probably back in the day was not great. And a lot of times when they had things that they didn't want to deal with, even as far back as 20s, 30s, when they had like gas lamps or oil lamps for streetlights, when that stuff would run out, they just bury it and cover it up. So eventually it leaches and leaks. Mm-hmm. So that same chemical that they had been dumping into the ground eventually shut down 3 municipal wells in Franklin because the parts per billion or million was over what was recommended. So they had to shut down these aquifers. So while we were at Riley, we start noticing like this huge, we're like, hey, where are you from? And they're like, Franklin. Oh, hey, where are you from? Trafalgar. Hey, where are you from? Whiteland, right where we're at. And Stacy, she's like, what the hell's going on? And then we meet Carrie. Carrie was a friend of ours, or is a friend of ours. She had lost her daughter and had ties in Franklin. So Stacy and Carrie, and there was one other one initially, but she was too entrenched into the political part of what was going on in Franklin, and it's hugely political. Like good old boy nepotism. Mm-hmm. Yeah, just it's kind of gross. But it's like Boss Hog. Weird.
I don't know
Duke
what
Boys.
Boss Hog is.
Dukes of Hazzard reference.
Oh,
yeah, Dukes of Hazzard reference. The guy with the white suit, little short, fat guy.
Oh,
yeah.
my gosh, yes.
Yes, so there's like a Boss Hog reference, Jack Sandlin, whatever.
Dude, that blew that went way over my head. I'm so sorry.
It's okay. So
I'm half your age.
They kind of started looking, and it wasn't very hard. We got some Freedom of Information Act, some FOIA requests, and they fulfilled those, and started looking through some Indianapolis Star Journal, like microfiche, all the way back to where they would put them on microfiche, and there wasn't a file or a PDF or whatever. It was a lot of digging. Mm-hmm. I think I want to say Stacy and Carrie and some of the people that we ended up hooking up with, they went through like 30,000 pages of documents to find times when this certain place had been cited. And we start talking to people, and then people start stepping up, and then we start looking at the numbers, and we start getting on social media about a way to report, like if your kid has cancer or had cancer and they were within this area. It wasn't long. It was 80 of them in like the last 6 years or something like that, and they all had ties back to Franklin.
And it's an incredible amount. Incredible amount.
It's huge. Yeah. So Stacy has been to... She's kind of got hooked up with a couple things, and obviously, my political views. Mm-hmm. But if I lean one way to the middle at all, it's the environment, because I'm a conservationist. Mm-hmm. I want to preserve the world, the nature, things like that.
Well, a lot of people who are
sick.
A lot of people who are hunters, who are Second Amendment provocateurs.
Yeah,
I think that'd be the right word to use. They lean heavily towards conservation of our environment.
That's responsible.
Of our landscape.
Yeah, it's responsible.
It's responsibility. A lot of hunters are the same way too.
I don't want to go catch a fish in the pond next to my house and it smell like gas.
You ain't gonna go to the White River,
Right. I don't gotta go far.
Yeah. You go there, you find an arm.
Right.
I've heard rumors, but I don't know if they're true or not.
But if I lean one way, that's that way. So she talked me into there was a lobbying group that was Environmental Defense Fund. And they would use us to tell our story about how an environmental impact has basically impacted our lives. And they would bring us to Washington, D.C. The trade-off was we would talk to the people that they wanted us to talk to try and push an agenda. Of course, I had to sit sometimes in these people's office and just bite my tongue because they would want to go off on some, left-wing strategy. But then in the other time, so one whole day we would just hit these senators, bam, bam, bam. We're testifying at committee meetings for the environment. Stacy's speaking in front of not the White House, but the Capitol building,
Capitol Hill.
Yeah, literally on the steps.
Yeah, I've seen the video.
Yeah, so she's lobbying for kind of their way, but what it ended up doing was giving us an audience with our people. So, we got to go to all the representatives and the senators for Indiana and say, look, we need your help. We need your help. And one of our biggest partners was, a Democratic senator. He's gone now, but he was super cool because he was right in the middle. He reminded me a lot of a Joe Manchin or whatever. So we would get an audience with them, so then we would start to get some traction here. So in the meantime, with all the legwork that she had put into it, I was part of the group as well, but I was a little bit too brash. Stacy's really good at kind of like making her point, making you feel stupid, but at the same time, like, she's so cute. So, right. And I've got a vein sticking out in my forehead, and I'm like, But she would get some things done. So then we started to get some traction, and there were people starting to force the EPA to come here. We ended up befriending a not-for-profit out of New Jersey that specializes in remediation. And we started putting pressure on them, and now Franklin had to dig up all these sewer lines and everything that were getting permeated with this trichloroethylene and was coming into people's houses, and they were breathing it in, and they're getting sick. Or it's in the water, and they're drinking it. Or it's literally just coming out of the ground, like when the water table comes up. So they've had to remediate a bunch of that. It's not done. Obviously, COVID-19 and everything has kind of stopped all the traveling to D.C., and we can't put the appropriate pressure on people. But we started a not-for-profit, and we use that money, whatever money we do make, and the name, plus the 501c3, and we are just going to keep going until...
What's the name of it?
If It Was Your Child.
If It Was Your Child.
Yeah.
And then how can people...
It's a hashtag. I mean, you look it up on social media, and it'll probably send you to the newest one. Like I said, it's been a little bit chill for a while just because of the planned gimmick and just the fact that we can't travel. Yeah. So we've been chilling, but they're fully intent to get going on it again just as soon as everything kind of lightens up.
When you said the planned gimmick, in the beginning of this, dude, people thought I was a conspiracy theorist.
I am.
Okay, I love a good conspiracy theory.
Okay.
I love a good one. And I love watching them. Dude, there's a guy that I've met and talked to that I was very surprised on how deep into conspiracy theories he was.
Right.
And I was like, dude, oh yeah, the camera's not focusing it. All right, it's a little better. It's not that bad. Oh well. But I was like, dude, I am surprised on how deep you are into it. Like,
right.
And he's naming stuff off, and I'm like, hold on a second, let me write this down. Like, I'm writing it down.
Right.
But with the whole pandemic that went on, at the beginning of this, I did say a lot of things, and they did come into fruition just because I was listening to these kinds of people that were talking about it. But they had meetings in 2019 talking about a coronavirus outbreak.
Barack Obama said it before then.
Yes. You can go back and look. In 2014, 2015, something like that, they talked about there will be, by the end of the next term, or that term with Trump.
Sure. A weaponized political something?
Yes. There will be an outbreak of a coronavirus near the end of his term that will cause a global pandemic.
I know.
And lo and behold, it happens.
Right.
And like Candace Owens recently came out and she just said, hey, there will be a cyber attack. They have already in 2020 they ran a scenario of a global cyber attack where all the internet and stuff will go out. Now, whether you believe this or not,
you know what they're going to blame it on?
What do you think?
The solar flare that's about to happen.
You think so?
Yeah, that's easy, man.
That would be pretty easy.
Yeah.
Well, you know how that Biden talked about doing a countrywide broadband,
right?
Which obviously, if anybody knows anything about internet, it's you. If you know anything about how government works, to get anything to happen, like to even, let's go ahead and use the example of if you have Wi-Fi at your place of work, say a firehouse, and you want to have better Wi-Fi, and you just say, hey, it's free to call. It's call. You just call. It's free to update. All you have to do is just make the phone call. It takes you 5 minutes, and you're laughed at.
Right.
Go ahead and do broadband for the entire country,
right,
and see how well it's going to be. I think
it'll be like it'll be like around the East Coast, a big interruption across Texas, and then pick back up in western Arizona and go up the West Coast into the Washington State.
Yes, but you can go back.
Guess who won't get it? The flyover states.
The flyover states, which politicians openly call us that, which blows my mind. But you can go back and actually see their meetings that they had. They're open global meetings that they're all recorded. Everything's documented. Sure. And when I saw it, I was like, oh my god!
But it gets filtered out before any media outlet's going to do anything with it. You got to go find it.
Correct. You have to do the research yourself, right. which recently brings us up to the Rittenhouse case.
Oh,
dude. Okay, I am pumped because it just came. The verdict came out yesterday.
Right.
Not guilty. Thank God.
Right.
But people, if you watch any left wing media, which I know people are like, don't bring politics into us.
Where?
Into when I talk on the podcast, people will tell me like you can't bring in politics about it.
Dude, let's go.
I'm all about it.
Yeah.
Like I'm all about it because, for one, it's more of an interesting conversation, and if you can bring in politics, it relies heavily into what we do for a living, like who you have politically standing in office.
Yeah.
It does truly matter. But with the whole Rittenhouse case, that was a huge fight for the Second Amendment. Like if they would have gotten this, if they would have had a guilty verdict, what does that tell you as a self-defense measure for you as an American citizen?
That's just
they
another
are going to come for your guns.
Exactly. That's just another way for them to look at me and say, "Look, it's not going to be upheld for you to, provide self-defense. So why do you need it?"
Exactly.
So just let us have it. Just turn it back in. We'll give you money. We'll just print some more money.
Oh, like Australia did.
Right.
And now look at Australia.
Right.
There's certain parts of Australia that are absolutely just horrible. They're literally being put. And I told this to somebody else
camps
in a camp, and they did not believe me.
Yeah.
And this is somebody that I love dearly and that I see all the time. And I'm like, they are putting people in an actual, like, it's a trailer park camp.
Right.
And they have to live in these if they
It's like the FEMA stuff after Katrina.
And they're waiting out on their porches like a bunch of cows waiting to be fed.
Right.
And it's like they're ringing the dinner bell, and they just start walking out their front porches. They're standing there waiting.
Sure.
Once you get to things where like broadband, if the government's supporting broadband, then they're making it a right. You could do like with what I believe it's Russia or Germany. They consider Wi-Fi to be a human right, but they can also take it away
and monitor it. I mean, they're already monitoring it. But
they do.
But
they already do that.
There's so many other ways that they can now, like, well, we gave it to you, and we'll do what we want.
Exactly.
I'll put this filter on it if I want to. If you say something bad, like Second Amendment, all of a sudden they're like, flag it, watch him.
I tell you what, one of my first videos that I did, I posted out there. It was with Brad Pendleton. It actually got flagged and censored on Facebook, and it got taken down because I was trying to do a boost post on it, which basically you just pay $6-7 to reach a certain amount of people, and it got flagged for. It was during the It was during the time when Trump and Biden, they were doing the voting and everything. When is it?
Oh, you mean like them stealing the votes? stealing the election?
Well, yes, it was during that time.
Yeah.
I'm trying to word it to where I don't get this video taken down.
This one?
Yeah.
Oh, maybe I take that back then.
Oh, yeah. There are certain things, no joke, there are certain things that I have to say posting stuff on YouTube and Facebook, like Joseph Biden won the election. There may or may not have been things that happened that were weird.
Yeah.
I have to say that stuff.
Yeah. To
keep the video up.
Sure.
Because I've had videos taken down and I don't make a fuss about it because, for one, hardly anybody watches these. So
right.
Dude, I am so whited out right now. Oh, well. But hardly anybody watches these, and I don't really make a big fuss because there's no reason to. They can kick me off whenever they want if I don't say anything that's the correct way. So, but during that time, I had a video post get taken down because it was considered that's possibly going to sway somebody's vote. If you go back and watch that episode with Brad Pendleton, there's nothing in there that's talking about who you should vote for or who it'll sway to. We literally talked about what his job was and what he does for a living. He works for the state, for the non-profit state. Basically, what he does is non-public. So any private education places, if you need funding to go to that school, he helps facilitate that.
Sure.
So that way you can go to whatever school you want, and it's kind of funded. That's what his job is. But that is at that point considered politically swaying towards one side of the
probably
aisle.
Because it's supported by one side and not the other.
It's supported by one side and not the other. So if you sit there and you watch the news, especially about the Kyle Rittenhouse case, you will see that more to the left leaning, which is it's almost all media is all left leaning. They show only certain things. I talked to somebody last night on social media. They were talking about how racist Kyle Rittenhouse was.
I know.
And that the victims, that they deleted the post, which I wish I would have screenshotted. They talked about how they thought that the victims, which there weren't victims. They're not victims. Yeah. They said the victims were black.
No.
The people that Kyle Rittenhouse shot and killed were the people that were attacking him, they were all white.
I know.
But in the media, they talked about them being black.
Yeah. Which early on, even the president of the United States currently called him a white supremacist.
Yeah. He had him in his campaign ad as a white supremacist. It's like, that's completely false. And I hope that he does a defamation lawsuit on them.
Just like me taking this thing right here and telling you, and I'm going to take this right here. This is a phone. See this? It's a phone. It's a phone. It's a phone. No, it's not. It's still a can. Right? Just. Oh man, people get spoon fed this stuff all the time, and they consume it.
Mm-hmm. And my biggest thing is, if you want to watch the news, watch whatever you want to watch, but
or do yourself a favor and don't watch any of it.
Yeah, don't watch any of it and do your own research.
Right.
That's honestly just what I do. I'll watch private news media, which I trust way more than any major. I don't even trust Fox News.
No,
because there's still agendas being pushed.
Yep.
And I watch all the small media stuff because I believe more in smaller media because they are more directly responsible for keeping themselves afloat.
Right.
Because they don't have an agenda to push. And if they do,
business.
then it's an actual business.
And a brand.
And if somebody doesn't like what you're doing, you can actually tell because your funding is going to start going away.
Right.
So you want to give the truth to people. So yes, people want the truth.
Right.
But the whole Rittenhouse case, what is your opinion on that?
Justice served. I mean, if you put it in the way that the whole court system is supposed to work, it worked. Mm-hmm. The prosecution it was terrible.
Oh, it was bad.
He was bad. I mean, like, where in the heck did they get that guy at the dollar store? Like, you guys got any prosecutors? Yeah, aisle 4, next to the cat food that's expired. But I don't know. He was terrible, and then all the information that they had and the amount of media that covered it. I mean, he was threatened multiple times. He kind of took a beating in a little bit. He got hit in the head with a skateboard, kicked in the face.
He did take a beating.
Yeah, I mean,
he really did. And the
prosecution wanted him to just sit there and take it. They're like, well, maybe you should just take your beating. No.
One of the prosecutors said, you don't take a gun to a fist fight.
I do.
You should.
Right.
Whenever somene's about
I'll
to
take a grenade launcher to a fist fight if I can find one. I'm old.
I'm just glad that justice was served. I'm glad that there's more faith restored back in. People weren't being like in the Chauvin trial. Jurors were being threatened.
Yeah.
And they were afraid. Even one juror came out afterwards and said, I was afraid to do a not guilty verdict because I would be attacked.
Sure.
My house was threatened to be burned down.
And that had a lot more emotional drive behind it.
It did have a lot more emotional drive behind it. And the thing is like, I even hate saying it, but he did do what was by the book per that department.
Yeah.
That was specific. He did specifically what he was told to do.
That's the way they were taught it.
It was their training.
In their academy.
Yeah, it's exactly what their training
was. Now, is it an old tactic?
It's an old tactic.
It's functional.
It is very
did
functional.
Work, but I mean,
with the drugs in his system,
it was a terrible cascade of just bad stuff that happened. There was a lot of responsibility to be shared by a lot of people in the George Floyd case.
Definitely.
Rittenhouse, the only thing that bothers me about it a little bit, but we've talked about it even prior to this, is his age. Mm-hmm. But as far as like what he did with the minimal amount of training he showed a small level of skill. Obviously, I can critique it a little bit.
I was going to ask you, what was your critique on that?
He got really lucky. Mm-hmm. I mean, he did what he had to do, but there again, he was terrified for his life. He did get lucky because the people he were fighting were thugs. If they were people that were actually trained to like assault you, he probably would have died. But he got lucky.
The people that he did shoot, the guy that Rosenbaum.
Yeah,
I'm going to get this
first
wrong. The Rosenbaum was the first one, yes.
Yeah.
And then Grosskreutz.
Right.
And then the other guy, I don't remember his name.
Unnamed male.
Yeah.
If
you do any sort of like legal like court history with those two, Grosskreutz stabbed his brother in the ear. Mm-hmm. Now, I may get this wrong. I don't think I'll get it wrong, but I may get it wrong.
Yeah.
Grosskreutz stabbed his brother in the ear, threatened to burn the house down with his mother and grandmother and sister inside, and threatened to kill each one of them.
Yep.
Upstanding citizen.
Great guy.
Great guy. Great, terrific guy.
He was at Christmas last year.
And then Rosenbaum,
Yeah.
convicted of child rape, and, child molestation,
and sodomy.
5 little boys, and anally raped a 5-year-old or 9-year-old.
I don't remember. Either way, it's gross.
I don't think it matters the age, but it does matter the age. Anything under the age of 18, but anally
it has to
raped,
be consentful. I mean, it's still rape.
It's still rape, but
Right.
it's to stand there and say that these people were upstanding citizens, which is what I've heard plenty of times, is disgusting.
It is.
And immoral to say.
Right.
And the fact that what do we have? Because I've heard this argument. Rittenhouse had every right to be afraid to be getting raped by these guys because they've got prior history.
I don't know that he knew the history.
He did not know the history.
Right.
He did not know the history. But that is something you could say afterwards. Like, yeah, I was. It's like in the whole Step Brothers thing. He said, "Let's get it on," like, and I believed him. Like, he's got a history of it. But
Right.
that's just my joke for it. But with that whole thing, like, I do agree that he was lucky. Now there was some misinformation on It was proven that he did not have a jam, that he tapped and back into it. And the reason why that got started, that actually came from Grosskreuz's Twitter. He said that he
racked and tapped?
He racked and tapped, but you can watch in the video he never did.
Oh.
You can watch in the video he never did. Now it was if you can sit there and watch the video in slow-mo, which I've done plenty of times, unless he's got a quarter of a second time for racking and then tapping right to go, it didn't happen.
Right.
I
haven't watched it that exclusively. I just keep rewinding it to where he shot him in the bicep.
Where he vaporized my bicep.
Dang.
Yeah, he did, dude.
Yeah, right.
It showed that kind of restraint on it too. I mean, honestly, whenever I've gone to the range, it's if I'm turning and tap, it's tap. It's a few at a time.
I mean, a 17-year-old kid with a semi-automatic weapon, not an assault rifle.
Correct.
Right.
Or an automatic rifle.
No, it's not. Semi-automatic weapon. A 17-year-old kid. I know what my 17-year-old would have done. It'd have been empty.
Yes.
So, I mean, a little bit of precision and surgical movement. I mean, it is what it is. I'm glad he's out. I'm glad he's going to have an opportunity to live. I'm sure he'll be fine financially. Mm-hmm. I think the justice was served, and if anybody's writing about it right now, then we can't be friends.
It's my biggest thing is follow what truthfully happened.
Yeah.
Look at the case. I watched the court case on it. If you're going to sit there and still say that he's a racist afterwards, you are part of the problem in our country with not you, but people that say that he's a racist. Well, did you watch the case at all? Do you know what he was even there for?
He was a scared kid.
He was I won't even go with him being a scared kid. I'm going to go with he was stepping up and doing what the law enforcement failed to do in that community. People were threatening to burn down businesses.
I see what you're saying.
That's what I'm talking about. Yeah. People were threatening to burn down businesses. We're about to be business owners.
Right.
I would go and protect my business.
Call me.
Yeah, I'll call you.
Right. My kids are grown, man. I got skills. I can help you.
Oh, yeah. You got it. But I would be doing the same. I'd be standing in front waiting, like, bring it on, dude. Yeah. This is my business.
You're not taking
this. This is where I make my money.
Right.
So until anybody's got skin in the game, because right now we're about to get skin in the game.
Sure.
I understand, and I'm thankful for somebody to step up to protect the local businesses in that area. Black-owned business, white-owned business, doesn't matter who you are.
Nope.
You're still a business owner.
Yeah.
You're somebody who needs protected, that the law enforcement failed to do their job.
No, they stood off and let them.
They did stand
do
off. And that's the disgusting part about it. But also, then again, there's so many discussion parts into that. Why would they stand off? Were they told to stand off?
I guarantee it.
Well, they were told to stand off. Hey, freedom. You guys do
Free reign.
whatever you want.
Yeah, do whatever you want. Get your temper tantrum out of the way.
Throw it. Do whatever you want. But then again, the officers that did that, they were told to do that. The people who could have stood up and did anything about it, they're probably afraid to lose their job.
Right.
What else are they going to do? If that point in Kenosha, Wisconsin,
right,
at that point, if you're told not to step in and help those who are in need, because you're afraid to lose your job, you should quit your job. Right. No longer be an officer. But at that point, what is next? What is next to come?
Who knows?
Law
They're going to
enforcement
start
in New York
giving them
City.
businesses instead.
Hey, go ahead and start running it.
Yeah,
like Look at New York City. Cops are dragging people out of businesses because they're not vaccinated.
I know.
And I said last year, 2 years ago when this started, I said, what are they going to do when you're not vaccinated? Give it time. Hey, it's going to come here. There are going to be mask mandates here. No, there won't.
What happened? There's mask mandates.
Yeah. What happened when, hey, you got to be vaccinated to work here? Well, they're going to do it here. No, they won't. It will never come here. It came here.
Yep.
What's next? Hey, look at Australia, what they're doing. They have a camp that they're building that will be completed in 2024. What does that tell you? This is still going to keep going. Yeah. This is still going to keep. And then the people say it's going to be here forever. Yes, but if we're not going to stand up for what's right and let people make their own choices, what are we going to be doing?
Right. Yeah. The hard part is that when you start talking about like standing up and standing up against that stuff, I mean, this is a good way to convey a message. Obviously, however many people watch it, but it's unfortunate. It's going to one guy can kind of light a fire, but it's like lighting wet leaves on fire. You know what I mean? You're going to get 5 or 6 leaves are going to burn and it's going to fizzle.
Yes.
And it's not until you put like gas on the fire or you get a bigger pile of leaves. You know, you need more people to be in the exact same way of thinking. And then, I mean, right now everybody's using internet and everything to saber rattle, basically saying, "Oh, we got to overthrow or do this. Or we got to stand up against these people." It'll take thousands. Mm-hmm. So what's going to set it off?
What's going to be that gasoline?
What's finally going to be the gas that puts the wet leaves on fire? You know what I mean? Because all you can do right now until that comes to that is prep. Mm-hmm. And I'm saying just be ready.
Well, like with what we talked about earlier with Candace Owens, when she came out and said that they had a summit for a big meeting on a scenario when the cyber attack happens and the internet goes out.
Right.
That could be a very good way to fizzle out a lot of people.
You know that the internet goes out, though. It's going to take down a lot of communications and everything, too. Mm-hmm. So let's talk about this for a second. What's the contingency? I mean, are you going to go to the firehouse? Are you going to go to your job? If there's no lights, there's people roaming around the streets looking for food and things like that. I'm not going.
I mean, at that point, what do you show up with? This is just all hypotheticals, people.
Right. It is hypothetical, but
it's extremely hypotheticals.
But you said this is like conspiracy theory type stuff. Yeah. If we get it to that point, what do? I mean, I got a compound to maintain down there, right? I got stuff I don't want other people to know I got or come and get it. So I don't know, man. You would think that like public safety places and everything would be like, okay, check it out. We get overran by aliens in California. Like odd days, you guys are coming, okay? Mm-hmm. Even days, these guys are coming. Nobody thinks about that, though.
Well, you talk about
the collapse.
If we're going to go ahead and sit and talk about, because by the way, I mean, I would love to be part of that prepping kind of that conversation for a department. Because I mean, how much fun would that be? For one, like prepping for all that kind of stuff.
Yeah,
that would be so cool.
There's none.
Well, the government came out. The government came out and said they didn't say specifically UFOs are real,
right?
But last year, do you remember this in June or something? Yeah. They came out and said there are unidentified objects that are not of this world.
Right.
It's weird.
We don't know where they're coming from.
Right. That's kind of like saying...
In breaking news. Right? Just cover that up.
And nobody cared. Like, that goes to tell you how crazy things got last year. And the government's like, hey, things are going kind of sideways right now. We should go ahead and release this because it'll just slide.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. And they did. Yep. They did exactly what that... And when I saw that, I read part of the documents that came out that was declassified. And I was like, oh my gosh. They just came out and said, if you don't want to talk about this, we don't have to.
Oh, you're fine.
Okay, perfect. And they came out and said that aliens are basically, there's a very high likelihood.
It's
highly probable that there are beings or something else, either other dimensional or otherworldly, that are in existence and we don't know what's going on.
Right.
Because I'm real big on the whole alien stuff. Like, it's interesting. It's very interesting to me on what it could be or what it can't be.
If you can think outside of a third dimension, right, and your mind ever touches a quantum realm, you have to think like, there's no way it's just us. No. There's no way.
Which I believe in. I believe in the Bible. I believe in what is talked about in the script. There could be a difference of who these aliens are.
Sure.
Because I've got my hypothesis on this. Like,
Yeah, maybe a sea ray is an alien. You don't know.
Exactly.
Right.
So like
Maybe
with
crabs.
crabs are weird, dude. So Jordan Peterson. Are you a fan of Jordan Peterson?
I know.
Okay.
A little bit.
Jordan B. Peterson, I highly recommend it. If you guys are interested in reading or audiobooks, for one, he's got a different voice. I like listening to it. I got a couple of his books. I actually just bought Maps of Meaning last night. I was drinking a little bit, and I was like, man, I'm going to buy this book. And I bought the book. It's 30 hours long audiobook. Like,
oh my God.
Dude, and I don't know why I bought it. I'm going to listen to it, though.
Yeah.
But in his, not Beyond Order, but in his other book, it's right there. Let me see it real quick. 12 Rules for Life.
Oh, I have that.
12 Rules for Life.
I have it in my truck.
I can remember that. You have what?
So I think I have the 12 Rules for Life in my truck.
Dude, great book.
Yeah.
Read it.
Okay, I haven't read it yet.
It's fantastic.
That one and Goggins' book I was going to read.
Oh, I haven't read any of his books.
Yeah.
He's from Indiana.
Brazil.
Yep. Brazil, Indiana, not Brazil, country.
Indiana, yeah.
So in that book, he talks about crabs. The first chapter is all about crabs. Crabs are vicious, bud.
Yeah.
They're messed up.
Right.
They're crustaceans. Those things.
Are they? Or maybe they're aliens. Maybe they're just
could
been
be
here the whole
aliens.
time and
Do
we
they
just
look-
accepted and learned how to eat them.
they're coming back in UFOs trying to save their people. We keep
the
stopping
bigger
them.
crabs are now coming.
Dude, like Commander Fravor. He was on Joe Rogan. He talked about the Tic Tac. I believe his was the Tic Tac that they saw. And
the Tic Tac, yeah.
The UFO that they found. They got a lock on it. I think that was with Favor got a lock on it, or it was another one that they got a lock on it. And dude, it's on video. The military came out with it, and they sent that in to get research. They're like, oh yeah, it's real. Like,
I don't know what it is.
yeah. Your guess is as good as mine.
Right.
So I don't know. I'm real big on the conspiracy theory, but back to what we were talking about with the power grid, with what departments would do. What would they do? What is their contingency plan?
It's not even just the public safety. I mean, all of it. What's going to happen? Power grid goes down. There's pumps and things that like run sewage treatment plants. There's pumps that pump water uphill. You know, there's all sorts of things that could go down, and nobody really thinks about that. They're just like, well, I guess I'll put batteries in my old alarm clock, and I'll get up and I'll get a rooster. I'll get a rooster, and the rooster will wake me up, and I'll go to work. I ain't driving to work. It's like 37 miles. There's no way.
Even at that, like, what's going to happen? Like, I'm a big fan of EV, like electric vehicles.
Yeah.
What's going to happen with these people that have, Teslas? The power grid goes down.
I do have an answer.
What's your answer?
Well, I'm thinking about doing it right now.
Oh, you want to talk about it?
No, I'm thinking about putting in 16 solar panels and a backup generator that's all electric.
That
and you
would be
could
cool.
charge cars off the sun.
That would be cool. I should have changed.
And if it's off grid, or I'm kind of off grid, I'm not going to say where I live, but it'd be nice to have that 18 kilowatt hour battery, and all of a sudden the grid goes down, and people are out in the streets like looking around like, what's going on? And all of a sudden I hear a switch. All my lights come back on. Everything comes back on.
Like
I
a
look
big
outside and I'm
spotlight
like,
up in the
cool,
sky.
it's sunny. I don't have an app on my phone anymore, so I just got to walk outside with the weather rock. You know the weather rock, right? Sun's on the rock. It's sunny. If there's rain on the rock, it's raining. If there's snow on the rock, it's snowing. It's not hard. Wind is kind of hard with a rock, but
you got a flag.
right.
Yeah, you got a flag up there.
Sure. So you go back to the weather rock and just wait for sunny days and just chill.
Dude, that's actually a good idea. Elon Musk talked about
It's so expensive.
solar panels.
Solar panels and the backup generator and everything, $65,000.
Oh, you've already priced this out.
He was there like the other day.
Oh.
Yeah.
It was well, I know you can reverse your power from your car, your electric car, to power your house. If the power goes out for 12 hours, you can run your car on it for like 14 or 16 or something like that. And it can power a lot of your appliances.
As long as you have fossil fuels too, like some of the newer trucks, they've got 120 volt service coming out of the truck. Like mine does. I can just plug it into the house for a little while and run the refrigerator. And then obviously I have gasoline and propane on hand.
Well, a lot of places, like with refrigerators, like with keeping meat, they use salt to keep meat.
Oh, to cure it?
To cure it, yeah. And
Or cook a bunch of it in a hurry and then find a way to cool it. If you have a pond, you can still get to, 50-some degrees if you can find a way to seal it and get it on the bottom.
No.
Right?
So that'd be kind of crazy.
You just got to seal it in a bag and then get it on the bottom, and then the water will
like
keep
a vacuum
it cool.
seal bag.
Yeah.
Okay. With the power grid going down, I do wonder what would police, because all of our communications.
What are they going to do?
What are we going to do on it?
It goes to martial law, I guess. It's if it can organize the military, if they can organize the military at all. But I don't even know if they're going to do that. They're going to come. They're only drilling 1 week into a month and 1 week a year.
So let's go ahead and run this through. Let's do a scenario real quick.
Scenario.
All right. I'm going to be the interviewer. You be the interviewee. Okay. You ready?
We're doing this seriously, though, right? I'll be my own personality.
Be your own personality.
Okay. You may not like this.
Can I come to your place? No. So
yes, you can, but you need to bring a friend that's not of the same opinion because we're going to get hungry.
Ooh.
Yes.
Okay, so you're talking about cannibalism already. This is already scary.
6 times faster than everybody else. You got to one up everybody.
All right, so let's talk about this. How do we think this will go down? How do I personally think if the power grid does go down, it's not going to be randomly one day. It just everything shuts off. I don't think that would happen. I think it'd be in sections and spurts, and then you'll see the media and the government trying to cover it up, saying, "Hey, this is not really no big deal."
How will we know? We're going to go back to like the town crier, though. I mean, there's not going to be print media. There's probably not going to be internet.
There wouldn't be any of that. There wouldn't be conversations having on phones. You'll see guys with I think sat phones would still work. I think landline would still be a better option. So you'll see old people rounding up. I think that's what you'll see. 70, 80, 90-year-old people rounding up. But you'll see a lot of stuff like in other parts of the country, like, hey, our power grid's more superior. They're going to use politics. I think they'll use politics with people that have stronger power grids that are all towards electrical, not fossil fuels. Like you look in Texas, what happened in Texas.
I was going to say, Texas has their own grid.
They have their own grid, but it wasn't strong enough to what they...
Yeah, they never built it for a winter storm.
They never built it for a winter storm, which is like once in 100 years that would ever happen. And that also, they were trying to prove like, hey, this all... having all electric stuff's not going to work because it's going to cost so much money to increase the grid, which is why you need fossil fuels to power a lot of stuff. So I think that it'll be used as a political agenda to push towards more electrical power grids in the entire United States to switch people from fossil fuels, dependence on fossil fuels, towards EVs. So that way, because they're already pushing it. GM came out and said by 2030 we're going to have all EV.
I won't buy GM then.
That's right. It's a cool idea. I think it's fantastic. There's a lot. I like electrical vehicles. I really do. I think their power is tremendous.
Yeah.
The technology that goes into them is awesome. But I think it's a market. It's not something that has to be direct. You have to buy electric. I don't think that at all. I think
as soon as they tell me I have to do something, I won't do it.
Exactly. I'm same way on this one.
Especially the federal government.
Correct.
Now, if the states had the rights to go back and say, hey, everything in Indiana is now going to be electric. If you don't like it, go to Kentucky. I'd say, well, you have that right. I guess I'm moving.
Yes, I'm moving to Kentucky.
Right.
So they start shutting power grids down. I think more towards Republican, conservative states would be the first ones.
To pinch them.
To kind of squeeze them. The ones that are more purple towards more left. Mm-hmm. If that doesn't work, you'll start seeing more and more blackouts happening.
Yeah.
So once that happens, let's say it happens in our area that we live in, our county. What would be, do you think, we'll go with a department, what do you think they should do? And then personally, what would you do?
Okay, so I would probably exhaust just about every means that I have to be like, does my phone work? No. Does my vehicle work? EMP or whatever. Mm-hmm. Does my landline work? Do I have any internet? All these other things. We'll probably exhaust most of the traditional stuff first. I mean, we're not going to get the smoke signals eventually. So early on, before the panic and chaos sets in, you probably should go make contact with somebody and figure out, like, what's the plan? But when I do that, I'm going to remind them, you should have had a plan. Right?
Yeah.
So I guess then if there's nobody to be asked and you want to see like things fall into chaos pretty quickly, you don't have fire coverage and you don't have, I mean, it's not going to be an electrical fire. obviously. But people are going to start burning stuff inside their house. They're going to use their chimneys that they haven't used forever. They're going to build fires next to their home to stay warm or whatever. And I'm like, who's going to do it? And then we got to remember, we don't have dispatch then. We don't have phones. We don't have, why are we even there? We're just going to drive around. Then we're going to waste a bunch of gas. The pumps run on electric. Can't get any fuel.
Do you think that they would switch over a lot of the stuff? I mean, if they were forward thinking, they'd switch over a lot of the stuff to manual pumps for diesel. And we also have DEF in our trucks. Stupid. We also have DEF in our trucks, so we're going to have a manual pump for our DEF systems.
Right. That's what I'm saying.
But a lot of our trucks, they have so many electrical.
Get it? Menards? No.
Yeah, Menards is gone.
They run on electric. That's probably the first places to be looted.
What do you think about money?
Money will be
cards,
obsolete.
Credit cards will be done.
No, you're going to be trading ammo. You're going to be trading medicine. You're going to be trading tools. Shit, I might get into chickens and pigs. I don't know.
Do you think it'd go back to like trading, like people in your family? Like, hey,
yes,
we need to do this.
Yeah, for sure. You're going to see like this is a conspiracy theory.
It's all conspiracy. Right? This is all hypothetical.
Okay, so what happens is I have a lot of grass to mow, right? Mm-hmm. So I have time to think about stuff like this. And usually when I get down that rabbit hole, I'm like, did I take my medicine? I better go take that medicine.
I don't think I took my medicine.
Right? Because I don't know how I got here, but I'm looking how to build a lean-to in the woods as I pass it. But it would fall into chaos. And then how long until you exhaust your provisions and you go looking? You got to find something else, right? So prepare, I guess, is the best thing you can do. My neighbor asked me this the other day. It's just kind of a side note. His kid was in the military, or he was in boot camp, and sent a letter home. Well, it came to my mailbox. Mm-hmm. So I texted him, or called him, or texted him. I said, hey, I've got this letter from your son. I'm going to take it up there, and that way you get it today because I think your wife already picked up the mail. I'll put it in your door. Are you home? He's like, no, I'm not home. He's like, well, I don't want you to have to walk all the way down there. I'm like, it's not that far. He goes, well, it's still a long driveway. I was like, it's 358 yards. He's like, what? I was like, oh. I ranged his front door. I was like, well, I'm kind of a prepper and kind of just
358 yards.
Yeah.
What's that?
Nothing.
That was a good guess, man.
Right. So you just got a bunch of groceries.
Getting kind of hungry, bud. I saw the some orange juice there. Too.
Yeah, exactly. So no, I'm just a weirdo.
I mean, at some point you got to be thinking outside the box. Look at the Amish.
I'm still trying to take care of my family. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Everybody's wanting to do that.
You're gonna.
My kids are older, and I've even told them, like, okay, this gets conspiracy again. My boys probably think I'm crazy.
Probably.
And I probably am clinically, but I told them, I'm like, it goes crazy. I mean, you can choose to defend Greenwood or wherever you're at in Center Grove or whatever. I said, or you can come someplace where you just got a little bit longer shot and they're not going to get as close.
A lot of people are going to be lazy. They're going to be, you got to think about how far away do you live from civilization? Is anybody going to be finding you? Are they going to be mapping out the roads? You won't be worrying about it.
But where I live, it's going to be so long until they get out to there. Mm-hmm. There's so much provision and supply in such a densely populated areas like suburbia and urban, Indy. By the time they get to me, we will have a well-formed militia at that point in time.
I think the Amish will have it made.
Oh yeah, it'll be like first time. No power, weird.
He's just sitting there, just combing his beard like this. Obadiah, we'd love to come over and stay with you. I tell you what, I think there'd be a lot of people that out in the Amish country. I think that would be a good place to have a good stand with them.
If they'd accept you.
If they would.
Yeah.
I already have like a shaved head because most of them are shaved heads, right? They can't grow hair on top of their heads because they wear hats all the time.
Right,
they
hats
rub the hair off.
But they do.
They do have the facial hair.
There's all these different. We got. What is it? Is it Presbyterian? There's
all different
German Protestant. Yeah. There's Amish. There's all kinds of Mennonites. There's all these other things. So they probably are going to do fine.
They'll be just fine with COVID. I mean, look at with them with COVID.
Yeah.
I mean,
or a guy that slept in the dirt in Somalia for a couple days.
You'll be fine. Yeah.
Right.
You'll be all right.
It's not. I'm not saying that I'm ready. There's definitely going to be some things I'm not thinking about. Like, I can't charge my batteries from my drill. You know, how am I going to put up boards on my windows?
Good old
hammer and nails. I got to go back to that. What is this, Juarez?
What is this, Juarez? I have to hammer my own nail.
Exactly.
I think that's definitely an interesting topic. I mean, when I'm out mowing, I'll mow for a while. I mow a 5-acre property, and I enjoy doing that property. And I'll sit there and I'll be like, man, like, what if stuff hits the fan? What am I going to do? I mean, there's an EMP wave or
electromagnetic pulse.
Yes, and they go ahead and just take out anything that's electric.
I recently wrecked a vehicle, one of my trucks. And the only reason I had it around is because it was carbureted and it had no electronics. Oh
man! Well, I was listening to one of Joe Rogan's episodes. They were talking about there was evidence that showed that not the government, but an entity can, as long as they had your serial number for your vehicle, your lot number, and they can get into the computer system in your vehicle and they can apply the brakes. They can apply the accelerator. And there was evidence that the government was taking out people that they had by doing that. Like, oh, no, the accelerator got stuck on and they crashed into a flat wall.
That's the whole OnStar thing. I'm like, no, I don't want them to know where I'm at.
Yeah.
Right? I don't want them to know the airbag went off.
Exactly. Right. So, like, what else can they do? Because there's obvious things, like you look at Edward Snowden and what he did.
Right.
Like the Patriot Act? Mm-hmm. It sounds pretty patriotic. But
it's not. Truly it's just wasn't. A way for them to spy.
Exactly. It was a way that they would get to looking at all of your text
everything.
Messages, all of your phone calls, listening
your history
your
on your
calls.
internet.
There was something that Barack Obama did that I actually did like, that they did investigate that and found out. They said, well, how many times did this truly actually help the American people? And he goes, like 14. out of the hundreds of millions of gigabytes of information that they had, it would be terabytes at that point, of information they had on the American people. It only helped I don't even want to say 14. I want to say like 3. Right. It was like 3 or 4 they came out with. They're like, this is.
I think some of the Patriot Act, though, I mean, some of the things that were good about it is it helped with, what am I thinking of?
Are you trying to
Department of Homeland Security. It actually beefed that up a little bit. So you got places like in Boston when they bombed with the the Boston Marathon and everything. They were able to go through all these different cameras and everything that kind of came about because of that, and they were able to find them and identify them. Otherwise, that probably would have went unsolved for a long time unless somebody talked.
Yeah, could have. But still,
who knows? They may have set that up too. Who knows?
There's so much to talk about with, dude. What about with like JFK?
Oh, there were some files that were just supposed to be released.
They were supposed to be released,
and they got nixed
by the Biden administration.
Yep.
So what do you think? You don't have to tell me if you don't want. Because he was trying to
I know. Yes, that was an inside job. That was pre-Hillary Clinton. Like, he got suicided.
Or he got suicided.
He got unalived.
Unalived.
Yeah.
I tell you what, dude. I was like, oh no, I learned about it in school. I'm like, oh no, it's horrible. Like JFK, president, shot and killed by Lee Harvey Oswald. And then you look into it, and you're like, wait, what was he doing beforehand? Oh, wasn't he trying to disband the CIA? Mm-hmm. He was trying to disband the CIA, and you're like, wait a second, why? And then you're looking into it, and you're like, oh my gosh.
Yeah, they're doing some super shady stuff.
There's some real shady stuff going on.
Murking people.
And you look into that, and you're like, well, why would they do that? Okay. You start piecing together.
You start peeling back the curtains, and people can see in the windows. Like, what is going on here? Yeah,
it's pretty.
I could go on with that for ever and ever and ever, like conspiracy theories and what ifs.
Dude, I would love to.
We are living in a strange time, though.
Yes.
I apologize to my kids all the time. I'm like, I'm so sorry for whatever part that I played in this by like not stopping millennials or not stopping whatever, because I was raised, my parents stayed together till I was out of the military, but it was right shortly thereafter I got out of the military. Honestly, they should have never been together as long as they were, because I was in and out, like where they would be separated and they would not be separated. My mom was trying to work, my dad was trying to make it work. And then, so I was raised by my grandfather and grandfathers and grandmothers, and they were both part of the greatest generation. So, like my grandfather, the one that I hold dearest to my heart, no offense to my other grandfather, but I just had more time with him. He was in Pearl Harbor, at Pearl Harbor, like when it was bombed. So in the Navy, he ended up, his brother was there as a Marine. So they were taking bodies off of boats and stuff. So this guy had so many stories to tell. He was a hardworking guy, farmer in New Palestine. And it seems like it gets to me, like Gen X. And then after that, it just got soft. I don't know why. I'm not saying you are.
I am so soft and pudgy.
But you're not.
I hate donuts.
I'm not. You're not. That's not what I'm saying.
That was actually a question that I have. It's one of my questions that I had written down.
Oh, do you want to move to that?
Perfect. Yeah.
Okay.
Let's do that.
Segue.
So let's segue to the next part of the discussion, which what happened to men in America. You look at, we talked about this earlier, you look at the older generation, that their testosterone levels are much higher than the average adult male as of today.
Sure.
Not only the testosterone levels, but what can go into that? I think there's a whole multitude of things that go into the decrease in testosterone in the adult male as of today, and also where men are at in a society today.
Where do you think... you turn that fan on?
You need the fan?
Yeah, please.
Yeah, you got it, buddy.
Thank you. I'm kicking in all my creatine and everything. CoQ.
I tell you what, I had me one of these. I mean, I'm feeling it.
Yeah.
It's got caffeine in it, the body armors. Plus the coffee that I had this morning with the extra shot of espressos.
Nice. This is a theory. Obviously, it's not, the views and expressions of Matt Davidson, not necessarily the views and expressions of the whatever. Yeah. Plug your business or place of employment. But so this is a theory. Mm-hmm. Where did it kind of go wrong? I think in the school system had a lot to do with that. I think inclusion in the invention of the participation trophy had a lot to do with that. We move further away from personal responsibility and think as a collective all the time, and then include victim mentality. So never take personal responsibility. Always find somebody to blame. Makes you soft. Because if you can't stick your chest out and take your punishment, the old adage, Grandma used to make me pick my own switch. Mm-hmm. You'd be in jail. Dude, really, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, I mouthed off to my dad one time when I was about 14. He paddled me. And I turned around and I said, "That's supposed to hurt?" He knocked me down. like my mom was like, "You're going to kill him." But that doesn't happen anymore.
It's rare if it does.
Yes. So that is a slow turn. And I want to say it's Saul Zelensky or Alinsky. It's part of the Communist Manifesto or something like it, or Atlas Shrugs or something like that. I can't remember which one it is. But they even said that it will take a long time for you to turn the dial on one generation and then turn it a little bit further on the next generation and turn it a little bit further on the next generation until they become either dependent or so soft that they don't know where to turn for guidance, so they look to the government or whatever. Now, another theory about testosterone levels, this is just me kind of spitballing. I think that they've created so much stress, people to be stressed out about this, stressed out about that. Now you can be stressed out about what bathroom you use. And stress decreases cortisol. Or burns up your cortisol that's in your body, and that's what kicks off a lot of testosterone response in your body. So if you're constantly stressed out about it, and you're constantly given all this news media, given all these things where you feel like you're stressed because you're a victim, and things just get harder and harder for you in a perception, and you just burn out all your cortisol, and then your testosterone levels go down. I know they're doing a lot of studies with vets, returning guys, combat vets, guys that may have undiagnosed post-traumatic stress or things like that. And it could be even in the fire service, depending on your perception of some of the things you see. It's burning out cortisol. So they're doing a lot of cool stuff now with testosterone replacement therapy. Another one that I'm kind of an advocate for.
I am a huge advocate for that.
Yeah. So it definitely helps and changes things. But as far as like, it just seemed like everybody was more manly. But like my grandfather, my oldest boy is named after him. His name was Zeke, and he was just a hard dude. Like lived through the Depression, went to Pearl Harbor, owned a farm, right? He wasn't afraid to be like a janitor. He was the janitor at Roncalli for like 13 years or something like that. But he still did it. He was just a manly guy, big hands. You know what I mean? Just that generation's so lost. Like, I don't want to be like, these damn kids, but they would not understand that.
No. Do you think that there's a saying out there that I heard recently? Hard times create strong men. Strong men create easy times. Easy times create weak men, which turn into hard times.
Yep.
I think we're currently in the easy times create weak men phase.
Yeah.
That's where I think we're at.
Yeah, we're about to see hard times, though.
I think we're about to see very hard times.
Because nobody's got I don't think anybody's got really the gumption or the fortitude forecasting what we have to look forward to as leaders, and they're not there. We just don't have it. Mm-hmm. They're not going to be the people that can make those hard decisions and not worry about hurting people's feelings.
That is something that being, I mean, obviously I'm way younger than you, by far.
That's all right.
But
I don't begrudge anybody that's younger.
No, it's perfectly fine. But the reason why I bring that up is because I remember still being in school, being told and taught, now you can't say that because it'll hurt their feelings.
Right.
Now, if you look at schools, I have personal opinions on public schooling and private education, but schools are tailored towards women, girls. To sit down, be quiet, respect each other, and learn. We're gonna talk to you. Be receptive to this. Boys don't learn like that. Boys need structure. They need structure. They need to get their hands on things. They need to be moving around. That's what they need, and plenty of other things. I don't understand everything on this aspect, but I do understand a basic part of the aspect of it. But the way that we're teaching young boys to sit down and act more like girls can also
change. A different take on it.
It's a different take, but I think that's part of it. I honestly very uninterested in education, very uninterested in sitting down and learning in school. I think it's stupid for me.
Right.
I'd rather not.
In a public setting or in a private setting or both?
Public setting.
Okay.
In a public setting, I think that it's just completely idiotic. I think that you have to have, like the boys and girls schools, you could see in those, there's completely different reactions in their SATs and in their responses to innovation and education from those schools versus public schooling. Like I had this talk with somebody a couple months back. Public schooling is some of the worst ways you can teach young boys. Some of the worst ways. Private education is next best. Homeschooling is the best. Look at the statistics on what their scores are and then their college admissions to what they graduate with. Homeschooling is the way to go.
The not that I'd want the government to do anything with it, right? Yeah. But I almost think that you could add layers. Like you could have homeschool if you learn that way, great. Mm-hmm. My boys both thrive in vocational type. Mm-hmm. So vocational, what is it? Like a Core 40 or with vocations or
it's stuff like what Central 9 has.
Yes.
In
so that
getting your basics.
There are a lot of people that learn that way. You learn that way. Knowing what I know about you, having worked with you in different settings, I know that you are the type of learner that has to put your hands on it. You have to be shown one, you have to do one, and then you can teach one. Right? That it's so one way now in public schools. Where it's just like, this is what we're doing. This is the prescribed thing. This is what the union for the teachers has agreed that you will teach. This is the what do I want to think? I'm trying to think like this is the road that you're going to go down. And these are the lessons you're going to teach on these days. And this is what you can include and what you can't include. And you're right. I mean, a lot of people, we will turn a corner. I actually think that my oldest son's generation has got maybe a chance. And he's 21. Yeah. But he's interested in like the Libertarian Party and he works on a campaign. And,
that's cool. I didn't know that.
Yeah, Rainwater.
Oh, very cool.
He's his media guy.
Oh, are you serious?
Yeah.
I had no idea about that.
Oh, yeah. So
Maybe he can help me with some media stuff here because I am.
that's what his degree's in,
Great.
media
Are you
marketing.
serious?
Yeah.
You think I can talk to him about kind of giving me some assistance on what I should do with getting the word out on this stuff, like
You
podcasting?
probably can. I mean, right now he's working with just social media as a job while he's interning and then fixing
pretty
that.
cool.
Anyway,
Oh yeah,
I think he's got a chance. That generation may have a chance. I don't remember what I was saying, how we got to this, but they learn different.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that technical honors should not be something that you scoff at, even if you come from a family that's, maybe affluent or they do okay. Maybe they have professions that are held in high regard, but you might get a kid every once in a while. It's like, well, he's not doing very good in school. I don't know why. What am I doing as a parent? Am I failing? Well, change what he's doing. Change the way he's learning. There again, homeschool if you have time. Mix regular learning with vocation. Like you said, you got time where you're doing it at home. Ooh, I'm cramping. You got to do your 40 or whatever to get them to go and take, whatever degree or whatever tests they got to take. But at the same time, get their hands on something. Do a small engine repair. Build a shelf. Stuff like we used to do when we were in shop class.
Yes.
Right?
And they've taken a lot of those classes out.
Yeah, but a lot of kids learn that way. I still remember that stuff.
I still remember I learned how to weld in high school
Me
from
too.
a welding class.
Yeah, I took metals 1 and 2, and it was like I still use that stuff every day. Now, sewing class that I used to have to take, like in home ec, you don't even know if they have that anymore for you guys.
I took it. I had home ec, but I don't think they teach home ec as what they
I've
used
not
to.
sewn a bag with a drawstring in it the one time that I've been out of school. But I sure as heck have welded some stuff together. I could build some shelves.
Yeah, I have sewn since then. I have sewn because obviously I was single for a while. I'm married now, obviously.
Right.
But I was single for a while and I had holes in my shirts and my pants, and I was like, I remember how to sew. And I'm just wrapping the sucker in.
Right. I mean, I can put a button on.
Yeah.
It's not like I'm going to build a bag, though. You know what I mean?
I'm not gonna build. If the grid goes down, I
guess I'm building a bag.
You're building a bag.
I might. Little do you know, I have a pallet of bags in my barn. Just for such an occasion.
That wouldn't be a bad place. Another place that I was told that would be a good place to have some a meeting for would be if everything does go to crap. Where would you want to go? I had a buddy of mine, an old friend of mine. He said I'd go to a food distributing facility. I'm like, why? He goes, because the place that he worked for at the time. He's like, you never been to one of our food distributing facilities, have you? I'm like, He goes, it's guarded. He said, if you can get in and get involved in that, he said, there's so much food it'll last you for lifetimes.
Right.
And it's so heavily guarded that there's generators there that are all diesel generators that you just got to keep feeding diesel to, and they'll keep running, keep everything cold. And you have kitchens there that you can cook everything off of because they're the size of small cities.
Right.
I'm like, that wouldn't be a bad one.
I don't know if I would do that. I think I
don't
would.
think so?
No, I mean, I have so many places to go. I've got a pond I can fish. I got 2 deer stands in my woods. I can hunt. I get turkey and everything in there. I mean, I got 6 cats if it gets a little crazy.
If it gets that bad.
Right. And then, the neighbor's only 300 and something yards away.
358 yards away to the door.
Right. I'm just saying. But I don't know if I wouldn't want to be that exposed.
That's true.
I'd want to be a small unit at that point in time, just really heavily armed.
So let's go ahead. We can. That was a great topic. That's something I've always been dreaming of talking about because I love conspiracy theories. I want to do an episode just reading conspiracy theories and giving my opinions on them. I don't think anybody would be interested in that except for me, maybe you. But
I'd watch it.
I might just do it just because of you then.
Right.
Let's go ahead and talk about what you do for your part-time gig. You work for Lifeline.
Yeah.
So can you explain to people who don't understand what Lifeline is, to me or to them, what it is and what you do?
Been there. So it's Indiana University Lifeline. It's critical care transport. It involves multiple levels now. It used to not be, but it's 6 helicopters, multiple ground assets throughout the state of Indiana, 5 bases. I currently work at Lifeline 4, which is in Columbus. Incredibly proud of that job. I love it.
Oh man, it's been said on me the whole time.
That's okay.
I'm an idiot.
I'm very, very supported there. And the autonomy of what I do there is just unbelievably incredible. It is everything you would think you would do as a paramedic times 2. Like you think, oh man, I'm going to be saving some lives. Right? Nope. I'm going to go do a lift assist at the fire department. So when I go there, I've always wanted to do it, and this was post-divorce, but we hadn't been through cancer yet, and I decided that I was like, I got to have a part-time job because I just sold this business and the house thing and everything, so I had to have a part-time job, and I thought, man, I should apply to be a flight medic. And I always used to tell myself, I don't have enough experience. Even with the military, because they typically want you to have like 6 to 8 years of experience in a busy 911. And I started thinking, I'm like, man, a lot of life has happened. I have 14 years in the perf at this point in time, and I've been a medic since 1992 in some form or fashion. So this is in 2011, maybe? So I'll have 10 years. I'll start 10 years in April there. So I went, interviewed, realized I knew a little bit more than I thought, and I got picked up. And I floated the state for about 5 years between all the bases. Sometimes even worked like on 911 truck, and I've been a chase medic. They've charged me with a lot of different stuff because I had the experience like on the 911 side, and then some of the critical care paramedic stuff with the military, and then they basically gave me 18 months to achieve the highest paramedic certification you can have, and that's flight paramedic certification. So I self-studied for that for about 8 months. I think you were around a little bit when I was studying for that all the time, and then I took it the first time and passed it. So been doing that now for 9 years. Love where I work. Call volume is, like, especially at Iron 4, IN for Indiana. We call it Iron 4 because we're one of the busiest bases in the Midwest.
Really?
Yeah.
How many calls will you guys get? I know your turnaround is like 3.5, 4 hours or something like that, something crazy.
Sometimes up to 4 hours, depends on the flight too. But or if it's a scene, then they're typically smaller, shorter. You know, if I make a jaunt from Columbus and into Edinburgh, and then I can be at the hospital in 11 minutes or something like that.
So cool.
So we have been exceptionally busy this year. And I'll use September as like an example. September of last year, 2020, we did, I think, 38, maybe it was 42 flights in 1 month, just that helicopter. And that was in 2020. And this year we did almost 70 in September. Now remember, you got to take out days where you can't fly because it's raining. Sometimes there's even wind affects it, thunderstorms, things like that. So pile in almost 70 runs or 70 flights at 3 hours apiece.
And these aren't just regular boring calls.
Oh no,
these are all
it
extremely.
Happens. It does happen.
It does happen.
It does happen where you get like an outlying facility or an outlying entity, agency, and they call for the helicopter just because they're so far away. But it ends up just being basically an ALS call.
Okay.
You know, but some of the other stuff, especially in 2020, what we were doing in 2019 and 2020 was just crazy.
What was some of it?
Oh,
if you can talk
criking
about it,
people, chest tubes, pericardiocentesis, pulling blood off of people's heart sac because
pericardiocentesis.
Centesis. Yes, sorry.
That's all right.
The indwelling pericardiocentesis, where you're like, they're dying, they're awake, and he would look at me and be like, I'm dying, and I would look at his pulse pressures and I'm like, you are dying. So I'd start pulling blood off of his heart, and his heart would expand back out again and start bleeding, or not bleeding, but beating. So. And the whole time you're doing that, you're transfusing blood into people. So it's like putting it in, taking it out, put it in, taking it out, put it in, because they had no clotting factors. So you're trying to give them back clotting factors from donor blood in the air. So
it is so cool.
It's bad. It's awesome. And then, criking people, you train for that most of your career, and you may never do it. I've done it like 3 times now. Putting chest tubes in, and we're not doing that as much anymore, but you get to run the ventilator and.
Because you taught me about a ventilator, you taught me peeps and pips.
Oh yeah,
and I mean, I'm not saying I was by any means amazing at it, but I had a better understanding.
Sure.
And it was kind of cool, coming up on a scene, and you were my officer for a little while because the officer I had got promoted to captain, and then I switched over to you as the ride out because we were in that kind of stage where they hadn't promoted somebody, so you were the ride out guy, and you taught me all about vent units, and I had to go work at another station, and I was over in the twos area and a lot of assisted living centers, and I started working on the vent. They're like, "What are you doing?" I'm like, "Oh yeah, man, like I have an understanding about these." Like I was just kind of looking at it, seeing what it needed, and I was kind of having a good conversation. Now I wasn't doing anything, but I was looking at it and I understood and had a great conversation with the medic, and I was just like, "Hey, what's their peeps or whatever it was? I don't remember. Like their pips a little high or something. I can't remember what it was.
Pips are probably a little high. Usually
Pops
if they're
a little high.
Respiratory illness or whatever, they get higher pips.
This was also back when
anyway.
I was backstepping a lot. I don't do that much anymore. That's just for the birds. But,
Right.
but I learned so much from you doing that.
Yeah. I love to teach.
Talking.
That's one thing I do like to do a lot. I like to teach the fire part of it. I like to teach the medic part of it. I like to teach EMTs to think outside of EMT typical box, like firemen, right? Yeah. So, no, but that place is just incredible. It gives me so much latitude and so much autonomy because it's me, the flight nurse, and the pilot. I have a sticker on the back of my helmet that says, "Nobody else is coming. It's on you." So there's nobody else. That's it. That's the highest it can get, right? The people that are coming on the helicopter, they're expected to fix stuff. Or at least make it disappear so it's not your problem anymore. But
what have been some of the most insane, I hate using this because I know that when
because it dredges up some memories.
Yeah, but what has been something the most technical call that you've had where you were thinking outside of the box and completing tasks at such a rate that you were impressed with yourself?
The pericardicentesis guy has to be at the top. I don't know if that's number one, but it was myself and another nurse, the flight nurse, who was also a paramedic, who was also a paramedic lieutenant at IFD.
Oh, very cool.
So he and I, obviously, we speak the same language, right? The vernaculars, very similar. And colorful swear words. But, what we did for that guy ended up getting us enough some recognition. We don't thrive on the recognition because there's so many spokes in that wheel, right? I mean, it's not just us.
It's the guys who are on scene first.
Yeah, them on the scene first. It's getting them to Methodist. It's knowing the level of expertise that's there. It's the nursing staff then afterwards. It's the support from his family and everything else. We're just a spoke. But he got recognized for what we did. We got recognized for what we did, and then we were rewarded. We got to fly the green flag into the Indianapolis 500 last year with him.
That is so cool.
Yeah. So, that one sticks out a lot. And then Phil and I won't say his last name because I don't know if I have permission, but Phil and I got done with the run, obviously sweating, just buckets. We got kicked out of the OR because we didn't even go to the ER. I told him I wouldn't. I got on the radio. I'm like, "I am going to the OR. I don't know where you want me to go, but I'm going to be in the OR in 10 minutes. We're not going to the ER." And they were like, and I'm like, "No, we're not." And it was like a real short. I said, "We're basically taking blood out of his heart as fast as we're putting it in. I don't have time to go to the ER. I'll meet you at the OR. Call me back and tell me where we're going." So when we got done, Phil and I, his glasses are all fogged up. We're wearing masks at this point in time, and they're just dripping. And you got your flight suit unzipped and everything just soaked. And he looks at me and he's like, "Do you realize what we just did?" And I'm like, "I don't ever want to do that again." It was terrifying because when we left the facility where we picked him up, it literally was, we only have this amount of time, and it's going to take luck and for us to hit like on all cylinders. You ready? And it's like you're getting ready to jump in cold water. You're like, "Go." And you move him over, and we're like, running to the helicopter. We had to call the pilot, tell him, "Look, we're hot loading. Don't just fire it up. We need to lift as soon as we get in." And then it was just putting blood in, taking blood out, And he's conscious, talking to us. So he's a nurse.
Oh, so he had an understanding of what was going on.
Yeah. He coded twice before we even left. We kept getting him back.
Gosh.
Yeah.
I remember when we worked together at one of our firehouses, that you came back into one shift one day and you were like, I just stapled a dude's head.
Yeah.
What happened? Do you remember what happened?
It was just a regular whatever trauma it was involves the scalp. So when the avulsion of the scalp, they bleed a lot, right?
Yeah.
So in FPC and then the CFRN, which is the certified flight nurse, if scalps are bleeding, a lot of times if you can approximate them and get them close to each other, at least they're close enough to build a clot. So we have a staple gun in the top of the airway or in the top of the bag. Like grossly approximate everything, get it kind of close, put it all back together. Okay, don't have to worry about that now. Let's move it on. like
a guy had given a tour. Moving on.
Right.
That's
and
so
walking,
cool.
And we're walking.
That stuff to me is like that is so cool. Like just thinking outside the box of things that you can do. That to me is just so awesome.
We've had
to hear and see that.
I'll just give you an example. Yeah. This is the kind of autonomy and the kind of support that we have. And I won't say who the doctor was or whatever. I was working as a chase medic, and it was a COPD person that needed to be intubated. We didn't have RSI drugs, but we had some drugs, right? And I'd already read, like, is there a way that I can use these drugs that I have to, like, get it at least close? So used drugs, I won't say who, where, when, used drugs that were in there. So it's like a tool, right? I have a tool, but it's not necessarily the right tool. Ends up, the outcome is good. You get intubated, end up meeting up with another crew that has a vent. You know, we're kind of thinking outside the box now. It's not just a regular ALS ambulance. I'm knowing like where my resources are and we're putting it all together. And the result is good. The doctor comes up to me and he's like, Matt, you got a minute? I was like, sure. He's, you know, like he's my dad, and we're walking. And he's kind of talking under his breath. And he's like, look, you know, like when you were in the garage with your dad and like he'd get like this big nut off a long carriage bolt or something. And you knew to get the carriage bolt out, you needed a hammer, but instead he used a wrench. I was like, yeah. He goes, that's pretty much what you just did. He said, don't do it again. I'll get you the drugs you need. I said, okay.
But that's cool, thinking outside the box. I mean, it shows intelligence. That shows somebody who's... I think that there is a disconnect with what we do now.
Full-time?
Yes. Full-time now. With what we do with guys who... There's more ways to screw in a light bulb.
Yeah.
That might sound stupid.
No, I'm 100% with you, and I actually have a retort. No. Not a retort, but I'm going to add to your point.
So there's so many ways to screw in a light bulb, and there's not just one way of doing something.
Right.
The officer I have now has really opened my eyes, which he knows who he is. He's really opened my eyes with...
He's a good guy.
Yeah. It's... Oh, I can switch my... I'm so bad at this. There's not only one way of doing something. There's multiple ways of doing something. And we need to reach out and broaden our education, our knowledge, our expertise. Let's talk with somebody else to find out what they do.
Yeah.
Let's see.
Weird.
But also then again, like I want to take responsibility on that and say, well, I don't have to wait for somebody else to do it. I can do it myself. And then put an application to it. And if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. But if it works, it works.
But if you're not running around telling everybody what you're doing, nobody's going to know.
Exactly.
Right? And Edison failed so many times before he made a dang light bulb.
Yeah, he just found out plenty of ways not to make a light bulb.
He knew which ways didn't work, didn't he?
Right? So what's your retort on that?
Hang on a minute.
Oh, yeah,
this is a senior moment.
All right, Biden.
No.
You Bidened it. What? Well, hey, it's a riding with Biden.
When you started that about one way to screw in a light bulb, right? You gotta train, right, and think of different ways. You got to get influence from other places, and you've got to. And there was a thought that I was going off on this, and I don't know why I did that, but I think a lot of it just comes down to like training different ways, find different ways to do it. It goes down to something as simple as and have people that will support you in making those decisions, and not give me a 3-month process for me to change a hose load. Are you kidding me? All right, that might be a little bit in the weeds, but I don't care. But that's what I'm saying. There's so many people that, you know how you make change like that? Mm-hmm. How you empower your people, because that's what they do to me. Leaders, in my opinion, I knew we were going to get on this subject somehow. Yeah. Leaders, one of the most effective things that they've ever done for me, and the most effective people that I gravitate towards, are people who empower me. They're like, look, you're the ride-out officer. How do you want to do it? I'm just going to listen to you, and this will be some of the things that I try and give you as steps. Staff Sergeant Sizemore. And then we go back to Staff Sergeant Sizemore, who I think was my mystery caller during the cancer times. But he's the one, too. He's like, his squad leaders and everything else, these guys are reconnaissance operators. He's like, I'm not going to tell you how to be a recon operator. You figure out what kind of recon operator you are. Figure it out. I'll help you. I'll guide you. So there is 500 ways to screw in a light bulb. But I'm not going to tell you how to do it. Show me. Mm-hmm. And then maybe we'll put them all together. We'll figure it out.
Because you might come up with a different way that's better.
Sure.
Or quicker. More efficient. Mm-hmm.
But what I get at Lifeline, circle it all back, I get empowered to do things my way. And like tonight, I'm working. Mm-hmm. I'm working with one of the most senior tenured nurses in the program. Almost 30 years she's been flying.
Whoa.
Right? Now, would I question stuff that she does? Out of respect, I probably wouldn't. But you know what she still does? What do you think? How do you think we could have done that different? What do you do? And I get that out of somebody that deserves all the respect in the world and no questioning. Mm-hmm. But she still is learning. That's the way she's learning. Because and those are the type of people I work with there. No micromanagement, no putting their thumb on me, no, hours that I can wear a uniform and can't wear a uniform. I'm just saying, some of this stuff is so trivial.
It does make it a lot more to be pressed down, to feel censored, to feel, I don't even like using the word oppressed, but to feel like you're not letting me be creative.
Right.
There's no creativity into what we're doing.
Right. And then to be told not to be creative by people who can't create.
There's issues in that, and we're talking in a very broad sense.
Oh, this is completely like,
yeah. We're just thinking us in the weeds here. But you take a younger child, because I just recently was one. You take a younger child, and you're going to go ahead and you're going to say you're going to do it this way.
Yeah.
Because I've got nephews and I've done that with them, and it's stupid to do that. But I told my nephew Hayden, I said, I shouldn't have said his name. He's underage. No. I took my nephew and I said, you're going to do it this way. And he goes, but I don't want to do it that way. I'm like, you're going to do it this way because this is the way that works.
Yeah.
And he literally goes, no. And then he went and did it his way. And I'm like, and I thought about it. I'm like, man, I was kind of an a-hole.
Yeah.
It worked better. The way he came up with worked better than the way I did. So once I kind of released some of that stress and said, okay, I don't have my hands in on what he's doing.
Yeah.
I'm letting him figure it out, and he figured out a better way of doing it.
Sure.
We were playing a little simple game at their house, but that kind of taught me, like, okay, so what about at work? How can I apply that at work?
Sure.
When I got a new guy with us, and I try to let him do something, he may do it the right way, might do it the wrong way. But
2 points.
Yes. What
questions, actually?
Yes.
One, do you ever turn that back and look at yourself and say, maybe that's a problem with me?
Oh, yes.
Because, that's what I've learned, right?
Mm-hmm.
Maybe at home, maybe as a child, maybe in your professional career, whatever. And then the other thing that you can ask yourself is, can I identify it next time that happens?
I hope I do.
Right. So I have to literally, as an indirect and direct leader, right, have to constantly evaluate what I'm doing. Because the people that, if you're good at that, if you're good at empowering your people, making them feel like they've got not only skin in the game, but they're going to be responsible if it doesn't work, yes. Right? That is incredibly empowering. And that takes some of the stress and burden off of me. Mm-hmm. But you know what it'll do? It'll attract people that have similar like-minded. Mm-hmm. And those people, they'll work for you. The guys I got right now, I won't name who they are. They we have such a respect for each other because they know that I will follow them anywhere and they will follow me anywhere. Mm-hmm. Everything is democratic until it can't be, right? It gets to a point where I have to eventually make a decision. And,
yes.
And please just respect me enough that just do it that way for now, and then we can talk about it later. But if you're able to question yourself and say, man, can I not do that the next time? And then why did I do that? Is that a me issue? And I think that sooner you start inwardly reflecting, and then if you can put in like a little check valve, like, okay, I'm doing it again. Mm-hmm. I can't do it again.
I'm starting to get closer to that relief, that point where it's an explosion of like a levee.
Yeah.
I'm getting to that point where I'm about to explode. Right. And I'm about to be too controlled.
You're going to do it this way.
Well, I mean, obviously, like, you know, you could even use it for marriage. You can even I'm married now.
Absolutely.
And my wife moved into, at that point, my house.
Yeah.
And she's probably listening right now, and she'll probably barge in here if I say something that is completely wrong and incorrect. But
it's her job.
It is her job. But when
she cross the bear, actually,
it's a heavy cross, a 245-pound cross right here. But when she moved in at that time, I was telling her, like, this is how it is. This is how I've been doing it. This is how it's been working for me the past 3 years, and this is how you'll do it. I quickly realized that's not how it works. Mm-mm. It's a relationship.
Yes.
I see the relationship as the firehouse is in your personal relationship. You have to let go of the reins a bit to let her. I've let her have the reins here at the house on certain things. There are things that I'm like, hey, this is my decision. But you also, I come to you to ask you, what do you think about this? Uh-huh. This is what my call will be after we talk. You mean this whole room.
Like you're communicating?
Yes.
Like you're sending a message, you're looking for feedback, you're like...
Correct. Very open communication. Yeah, this whole room was all her idea.
Was it?
Yeah, she did everything in this room, and obviously I couldn't have done this type of design, but it was open communication. She said, hey, I want to try something. If you like it, you like it.
Right.
I liked it. Mm-hmm. I let go of the reins.
Yeah.
Making calls around the house. Then I've learned to do that, like when I'm in the ride out spot, like making certain calls, and then I turn to the guy that's driving me, who he and I are on the. I think he's a little bit more intelligent than I am, especially with that kind of stuff, because he trains an insane amount, and he's also got his hands on so many things. I'm like, What do you think, bud? And he's got more time on than me.
Yeah.
Hey man, what do you think? You were an officer at another department.
Yeah.
Well, he's returned back with saying, well, you're the ride out. I'm like, yeah, but you also got good experience at another department. Sure. I'm going to utilize that.
I can still learn.
Yeah. I've even said that to the new guy behind me. I won't say his name, but I was about to make a call, and I said, what do you think, bud? And he's like, you're the boss. I'm like, okay. Yeah. You made a call.
Right.
But also it gets a different set of eyes on it. He might see something that I didn't see.
Yeah.
But it's that open communication. It's talking with your guys to see what works.
I think that happens a lot more though in operations, like in the line, the line companies, like the guys that are actually out there, because now it's so much. It is a lot better. I will say that. In the fact that it has kind of settled down with the groups that are working with each other all the time, mm-hmm. and we're starting to build those relationships, but we're still being at the top. There's still a lot to learn.
Yes.
And
I'd say it's about everywhere.
It is.
Yeah.
No, I've worked for a couple pretty good people as far as like the top, like one.
Oh, okay. I got you.
Yeah. I've worked for some pretty good people back in maybe two, but those relationships can't be taught to people that have never been in those relationships. Mm-hmm. They've always been in a role where they're putting their thumb on people or whatever. They've never done what we do, mm-hmm. or at the pace that we're doing it right now. I mean, we're killing it.
Yeah, we're growing.
Right.
At our specific department, we're growing. Yes.
Yes. So that gets frustrating because we've developed these things where, hey, I appreciate your input, even though I basically raised you, mm-hmm. but you still have learned different things than I have. You have opportunities to go different places and learn from different people. Mm-hmm. FDTN never existed before. Right? You guys get those opportunities to do that. And you bring stuff back, just like at Recon. You bring stuff back from every class that you go to, right? Mm-hmm. Not everybody there's a jump guy. Not everybody there's a dive guy. But you're getting ready to go dive school or something like that. I got stuff I can tell you. You go to FDTN, you come back, and this, I'm trying to be crusty, guy just buying my time. No, you still got stuff to show me.
Mm-hmm.
So when we go out and train, I got an idea about how I want to do this. Say I want to take a hose line and load the room, right? You're like, hey, I just learned this the other day. Check this trick out. There's guys that have got all kinds of things to bring to the table.
Yeah.
And that's what makes that relationship so special. Knowing that you trust the guy with your life. He's got a completely different experience in the way that he's done this as a professional. And then we can always learn from each other. It's crazy. It's great. Like my job, where I'm at in the rank structure and where I'm at, especially station location, is like the best job I've had since I've been in the fire service. So much fun. See, I said something positive.
Yeah, that's rare.
Stop.
Well, staying positive is a huge deal. Like,
did I go off track there?
No,
I
don't think you went off track.
Okay.
Why?
Did I make sense?
Yeah, that makes sense.
Sometimes I have to check because
it makes perfect sense. No, this is the perfect place to go rambling. But a lot of this stuff comes down to we can only do so much per organization. Mm-hmm. Each department's the same. Not each department's the same. Each department has their issues that are of the same value.
Oh yeah, for sure.
And it's also on how do you deal with that as a black helmet? How do you deal with that as a red helmet? Obviously, I'm a black helmet, so I don't understand a lot of the same stressors that red helmets and stuff like that get, because they've obviously got more responsibility to deal with and more people that hold them accountable because of that responsibility that they're taking on. But it's also on how do you look, what is your outlook on what the issues are per your department?
Oh, wait. That switched. What do you mean? My outlook on, okay. Just give me a little bit of an explanation.
Okay. Let's see. This is an example. This is an example. It's because it's the first thing that popped into my mind. It's an example. Let's say you have an administration complete dog trash. Yes. Okay. Yeah. None of them were ever firemen, and they were all kissing ass the entire time, and that's how they got into their positions. It's an example, but that's how they got their positions, and they're coming in and they're hardly tucking their shirts in, and they're coming in and they're throwing rulers at you, telling you that you're not abiding by the protocols or your guidelines, and they're out there violating their own. You, as a lieutenant, can't do as much as what you would like to do by restructuring that part of the administration.
Yeah.
So changing your outlook on things in the time being of trying to fix that structure slowly but surely, but changing your outlook, do you think can have a positive effect on yourself or your men?
I think you can control what you can control immediately, right? If somebody came to me, one of the guys, and said, "Hey, what do you think about?" I would say to all the black hat guys, look to your senior guys first, right? You got barn bosses, and if you're not getting that answer, and he's not coming to me or something and saying, "Hey, look, I'm noticing this. What do you think?" I mean, am I out of line here? I would probably say, "Look, let's stay inward for now. Keep it here. We can complain. I will try not to complain down. I'll let you complain up. I'll try not to. I'm not saying I won't."
Private Ryan. Like in Saving Private Ryan, the movie with Tom Hanks, he's crying. Crabs go up, they don't go down.
And then you would hope you would get that kind of answer. But if you don't, the next time you bid, go to a guy that gives you that answer, right? Mm-hmm. Get away from the people that are saying, just do it. Just do it. Mm-hmm. Because I would say in the time being, you just do it, I'll address it. And you got to have enough to, if you're charged with this position, you would hope that the people above you could go to them and be like, look, if you're going to keep throwing a ruler at me and you're going to tell me to tuck my stuff in or whatever I'm doing, you do the same thing. You lead, which will in turn trickle down and I can enforce it, right? But if you're not, and you're just going to be do as I say, not as I do, we're going to internalize and you'll never hear a peep out of us. We'll show up, we'll kick a whole bunch of booty, and we're going home.
Yeah.
Right? Besides that, don't ask for my input. They don't want it anyway.
Well, who would?
Right.
I don't want to.
But I would say that, you get up into that position, you've got to, you're doing both. Mm-hmm. You're still trying to take care of them, make sure their mentals is good, make sure they're right on the right track. They still feel like they're being empowered to do their job. We've given them the tools you're supposed to, and I'd say let me handle it. Mm-hmm. And if you're going to be an officer, sometimes you got to have those difficult conversations. Nobody wants to have them, but that's what I'm here for, right? I take care of my guys.
This has got me thinking about what we talked about earlier with the Greatest Generation and the types of men that they were back then versus today. Mm-hmm. My opinion, right? My theory. Men were men back in the day. Back when, Titanic, I'd use this example yesterday as a joke. Back in the Titanic, all the women and children on the boats first. Blah, blah, blah.
Dudes, you're going to die.
Dudes, you're going to die. Bill Burr's got a great joke about it. Bill Burr's got a great joke about it. He said, I'm going to die with all these sweaty, nasty dudes.
Yeah.
He says much worse stuff than that.
That was chivalrous, though.
It was chivalry.
Yeah.
But back then, I've always heard that men, you have a job. You will abide by that job, and you will die by that. You will die by this is what your core values are, because it is God, it is your family, and then it is your work. Mm-hmm. And then men would hold God as number one, treating the two things, treating others as you want to be treated, and you love God first.
Right.
They would do that, and then in return, how they're leading would be that same way.
Sure.
Putting God first, and then treating others as you want to be treated.
Right.
And then you would see most times you would see men doing that in those positions of leadership.
Yeah.
And then it just falls into place. Mm-hmm. But at first, it is very difficult to get the people to comply with what you're asking.
Sure.
But how do you get that buy-in at that point? So if
we're doing a similar thing. I mean, you're looking at God, unit. Mm-hmm. Core, right? Mm-hmm. We do everything for the right reasons. The unit is our family, 33% of our life, and then the department is third. I'm taking care of my guys first. I'm trying to treat them how they would want to be treated. I'm taking care of them. I'll answer to whoever I have to do these two other things. And it's been lost. Like you're saying, I mean, there's so many people that want to put the core first, then the unit, and nobody cares about doing the right thing by their guys or what's godly. Mm-hmm. Would you agree?
I would agree with that.
Yeah,
you're putting your eggs in different baskets that shouldn't be in those baskets. Mm-hmm. You're putting values first that shouldn't be, like finances, the security of
extra
pay,
right?
I have a very different opinion on a lot of this kind of stuff because I don't care about rate. I don't want to ruin it for anybody else. I personally don't care about raises. I personally don't care about a lot of that financial stuff. If I want to go be a millionaire, I'm not going to do what I do.
True.
I will obviously quit. If I wanted to make a lot of money, I would quit my job and go do 3 other things that I know I can do right now that would make me at least almost twice as much money for one of the smaller jobs. Mm-hmm. I know I can do that.
Right.
Will I do that? I don't think so.
It's a better balance.
It's
the way you're set up now.
The way I'm set up now, it's an extremely awesome balance, but I'm doing something that fulfills my heart, that makes me feel good, that I'm doing something, I'm helping somebody.
Right.
Yeah, just last day, we went into someone's house, beautiful home, by the way, and they had an alarm going off in their house, and it was driving them crazy. We came in, such a simple thing. What it was just a simple carbon monoxide detector that was plugged into an outlet that just kept beeping. They couldn't figure it out. And that made me feel good. I'm like, hey, I unplugged it. My engine needs batteries changed. And then they changed the batteries. I'm like, okay. Like,
so I'd be the guy behind you rolling my eyes. I'd be like, oh my God, why are we here?
Exactly. But like,
it takes all kinds.
It takes all kinds.
Yes.
But in my mind, I was like, man, I got to see a beautiful home on the inside. Yeah. 2, it helped them out. Sure. It relieved some of their stress and anxiety. Yeah. And if that's all I get to do, that's all I get to do.
Yeah.
But how do we get that buy-in? I've had this talk with Sean Grass in one of the previous episodes. You have to have that buy-in.
I love Sean. He taught me in the academy.
He's awesome.
Yeah.
He's hardcore.
Yeah.
To me, he's the, I think in my eyes, he's the definition of what a fireman is, among other men as well that I work with.
And doesn't forget, as a chief.
Yes.
Yes.
I forgot what I was getting to at that point. What was I talking about in the beginning part of that?
You're looking for
Before
buy-in.
The buy-in. What was before that? Hey, my caffeine's running out.
I'm lost.
Me too. Hey, let's move on to the next subject.
Is there another subject?
Oh yeah, there is one more subject. I mean, here's the thing: we can go as long as we want. We're at 3 hours right now. I'm good with going for a little bit longer if you want.
We can. I'm just going to take my son to lunch before I lay down for a nap.
It's 12:50.
Is it? Damn. Let's go.
All right. Well, all right.
I told you I'd do this, so I'm going to give you all I got.
Oh no, dude! Then 6 more hours. No.
No, my God.
No, I didn't expect it to last this long. To be honest, I really didn't. I thought you would have lost interest at hour one.
No, I mean, as long as I can weave it around and not get myself in trouble. What? I don't think we're out. I don't think we're in the weeds yet.
No, we're perfectly fine. And if they won't, nobody will watch it anyways. Nobody of that kind of culture would watch this.
Right.
I've been sending it. They don't. I'm done talking. So, mental illness. We talked about this a little bit earlier. You've got a passion about it. Can you explain to me or talk to me about some of the basic indicators of somebody that has got PTSD from the military? Something that family members will see, that'll notice after someone comes home from being overseas.
Yeah. I can actually wrap this into the fire department a little bit too.
Perfect.
The biggest thing, then a lot of the mental health care advocates, especially through social media and everything else, I follow a couple different people, like one of them veterans supporting veterans, and I could name off probably 5 or 6 if I got into my phone and saw like what's trending. These guys are coming back from arguably the harshest fighting we've ever done as a nation, with the exception of maybe some of the conflicts in Vietnam. And it drawn out for so many years. I mean, some of these kids were born when it all started and still went over there, or they were old enough to go over there. So there's a huge swath of people that are being affected by this. Now, mine is from a kind of isolated event almost, right? Whether it be from the training that got us to that point or the actual theater of operation when we were there. These guys are coming back and they're on these deployments sometimes for 13, 16, 17 months. And then they're coming back for a little while, and then they may change units and go back. Or they may come back and be home for a couple of years, up to 4 sometimes, and then they went back. So, it lasted for 20 years, 2 decades. So that's a brotherhood probably you're building that's stronger than anything we could talk about. They come back and they shut it off. They're expected to shut it off. The VA and the military, as you leave, is terrible about telling you what to expect, what's going to happen. There's no there used to be, and I don't know if there still may be, but there were times where they would give you classes and things like, hey, this is how you do an interview, or this is what you wear, right? Because all guys come back and there's still a part of the military part of them that it just won't die. I mean, I wore combat boots for 5 years probably after I came back because that's just what you did. But that's all gone. That fraternity, that expectation to perform, holding others accountable, being able to just say, hey, what are you doing? You know what I mean? You're a bag of poo. You can't say that to some people now, right? So they can't reassimilate. They can't get jobs. A lot of them have got demons they're dealing with from things that they've seen or done, and they turn to alcohol. I mean, I know a few guys that are in the serving veterans group that were heroin addicts right after they came back. A lot of them are injured. They're on pills. They're looked at different things. They end up homeless. So some of the key indicators definitely, and like most recently, a guy came back from the military a couple of years ago, and he's on my engine for a little while. And I just sat him down and talked to him. I'm like, look, this is going to be hard. You've got to reach out I told him, I'm like, if I see you're drinking way too much, or you're partying way too much, or I see some indicators, then I'm going to say something. I'm going to do something. There's a lot of domestic abuse that comes with these guys coming back home. You can't turn that off. I mean, and then you're trying to live with a person that you haven't seen, sometimes for years absent for years at a time. And mostly the addiction and just you look, when PTSD kind of started coming out, a lot of doctors would misdiagnose it as bipolar because you have these giant mood swings. Like you're depressed, and then bam, you're manic, and then you're depressed, and then you're manic, and that's what you're needing is like that serotonin reuptake inhibitor to kind of level out because you're not going from norepinephrine to serotonin, norepinephrine to serotonin. So you got to watch for mood swings, substance abuse, domestic abuse, and it's joblessness. Multiple jobs. Those guys they just can't come back and turn it off, and that happened with some of my generation, but it wasn't no way near as bad as what it is now. And I can't think about the tremendous disservice that we did to the Vietnam veterans by not recognizing that. Those guys, they had nowhere to turn. The nation was mad at them. So.
Well, there was protests. I've seen videos. Obviously, I wasn't around. Yeah. I saw videos of people protesting when they were coming back.
Baby killers.
Calling them baby killers.
Yeah.
I couldn't imagine. I couldn't imagine going through that and coming back home trying to serve your country and doing things that are challenging to yourself to even think about what you did, and then be coming home and being told that you're a murderer.
It still happens now. I mean, I follow a bunch of different vets that come back that are trying to do mental health advocacy. I do have a TikTok just because I watch my kids sometimes, and then there's some funny people on TikTok.
Oh my favorite thing to do is to read the comments.
Right. Well, what I was getting at is I do read the comments, and there's some of these guys that are coming back trying to be mental health advocates, and they're getting called names.
Wow.
All this other stuff, people just keyboard warriors.
Yeah.
But what I was going to also say and wrap this into it, obviously, that I had a significant presence and part to play in Austin.
Yes.
I was seeing the same things. Now, I don't know if it was impacted from his childhood. I would have hoped to not assume that because, he's got good parents. Mm-hmm. I don't know if it was the job. I don't know if it was just him not being able to cope, but all the same stuff. Fighting, mood swings, addiction, unconventional means of coping, accidents, all these other things. And I was picking up on it, but my hands kind of get tied when you're in policy, not reaching out as a friend. I tried to do both, but I saw a lot of the same things, and that dredged up a bunch of memories. So it's not just the military. That's what I'd say is like me being a mental health advocate. I would have to say that it's responsibility of all of us to either ask for help or notice when somebody does need help. The fire department is not what it used to be. The world is violent, and we're doing more runs than we've ever done. And there's a depravity in society right now that I think wears on you more than even the images that you see. I tell people a lot of the time when I walk away, it won't be the things that will bother me won't be, seeing guys burn up in cars or pulling bodies out of house fires or whatever like that. It's going to be the fact that I was just constantly immersed in the human condition for so many years that I'm going to get to a point where I'll be like, okay, that's enough peopling. I think I'm done peopling. And when I retire, I think it's going to be that way.
Really?
Yeah. But the whole thing is there's indicators for either in the fire service or in the military. You just got to pay attention. And most of the time, those people just need an advocate. Like, hey, this is what happened. I went through this. I'm going to tell you the steps that I took. I'm not telling you how to screw the light bulb in, but these are the steps that I took.
So for somebody who, let's say, there's a person that's listening to this and they're noticing some of these same mannerisms and routines that you just explained.
Yeah.
How can they go about talking to that person?
If it's a military guy,
what should they say? Yes.
I mean, more times than not, they're going to appreciate you more for just coming right at them. Now, the fire service, I don't know. I mean, there's not the same world experiences in that. You know, they're probably going to get mad or, I don't know, cry wolf, cry victim. A lot of military guys, I mean, you go right at them. Like, look, man, I don't know what's going on. I'm going to put this out there as a soft tool for you to use. I'm noticing some stuff's going on. I want to be the guy you contact if you're ready to talk about that. But if it keeps going on, I'm coming back. And just be that guy. At that point in time, it's just like, you know, we talked about boys. Give me guidance. Just give me an avenue, right? Open the gate. And once the gate's open, then it's up to you what you do until I yank your ass in the gate. Right?
Yeah. Oh, definitely.
Right. So I think that's probably about all I got to say about that.
Man, I really appreciate you coming on and just talking, dude. Sharing some of your knowledge. I hope I get to have you on again at some other point.
Yeah.
But, dude, this was great. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Hey, you stuck around to the very end of the video. I really appreciate you guys taking the time and listening to our little conversation we had. I had so much fun talking with Matt in this episode. I hope that you guys enjoyed listening as well. If you did, let me know. Leave a little comment, like the video, subscribe to that channel again, and also hit that notification bell. I hope you guys have a blessed day. Thank you so much.